Recording in progress.
Housekeeping first. Excuse. We're going to take a break right after the presentation if they can.
Yeah.
She was.
Yeah.
Oh no, I left.
I do. I don't think you need to say that on camera.
Oh yeah, beautiful. Yeah. I feel the lighting is.
I'm gonna need a little bit more than that. I'm gonna need a little bit more than that.
That was perfect. That was a perfect crunch.
No, she was like, and I was like, I'm gonna need a little bit. See, there we go. But I
I thought
wasn't.
it was a crunch.
I wasn't expecting a crunch.
That was pretty awesome.
Okay, council, good evening. We will call the Auburn study session meeting for Monday, September 30th, 2024 to order. Tonight's study session meeting will be held both in person and virtually. Sean, would you please do roll call?
Deputy Mayor Brown.
Excuse?
Councilmember Ammer.
Here.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Excuse? She'll be coming late.
Councilmember Rakes.
Here.
Councilmember Clinton Taylor.
Here.
Councilmember Tracy Taylor.
Here.
Councilmember Trump Manuel.
Here. Sean, do we have any agenda modification this evening?
Yes, Chair. An item has been added as a new item E for the Auburn School District bond measure.
Okay, thank you. So on the, do we have any announcements or reports or presentations on tonight's agenda?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you. First item for council discussion is on the agenda for is Comprehensive Safety Action Plan provided by Director Gao.
Thank you, and Jacob Sweeting, our city engineer and assistant director, along with Taylor Whitaker, who is our consultant on this project, will be coming up and giving you a presentation about the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much. Once again, for the record, Jacob Sweeting, city engineer, and this is Taylor Whitaker. She's the senior transportation planner with Fair & Peers, a consultant firm that has helped us prepare this study as well as our comprehensive transportation plan. So tonight, we're going to go over our comprehensive safety action plan. We're going to talk about the what is the plan, why are we doing it, and how do we do it. We'll talk about the findings of the plan. We'll talk about the projects and the programs that the plan recommends, and then we'll go over how the plan will be implemented. We'll talk about some performance metrics and how we're going to monitor those and report on those, and then we'll talk about next steps, which include consideration of a resolution 5789, which I'll talk about towards the end of the presentation. And now I'll hand it over to Taylor.
Great, thank you. So the last time we were here, I was here, we talked about the local road safety plan. So a lot of that is going to look familiar in our presentation, but this plan is much more comprehensive. There is a lot of different elements and aspects to it that are different. So there's engagement and collaboration, an equity piece, policy and progress, strategy selection, progress and transparency, basically. How are we going to track this moving forward? Also goal setting and leadership commitment. So those are the aspects that really differ. The pieces that we presented previously from the local road safety plan was really the safety analysis and planning structure. So why are we doing this? At the end of the day, our priority is really to reduce serious injuries and fatalities. We want to set Auburn up for grant eligibility, to prioritize safety projects, pursue safety for all modes, and really track progress for the reduction of those fatalities and serious injuries. So our process, like I mentioned, it was pretty thorough and in-depth. There was a 7-step process, and the first 3 really align with the local road safety plan. And this aligns with the grant requirements for this comprehensive safety action plan grant as well. So we'll be going through each of these elements a bit more in depth as we go along this presentation. So the basis of this project, this action plan, as I said, is to eventually end fatalities and serious injuries. On average, in Auburn, 7 people were killed and 32 people were seriously injured on our roadways per year, and that is something that we want to reduce. So you can see the chart here. Over the last 5 years, which was the collision data that we took a look at, crashes were reduced in 2020, and then they started coming back up. That reduction could be due to COVID, maybe people were driving less. But if you look at the next chart, you can see that those fatalities and serious injuries were increasing. And this is aligning with trends that we're seeing nationally as well as locally. So the key trends that we observed for those fatalities and serious injuries are on the screen here, but some of the highlights are distracted driving, alcohol or drug under the influence, fixed object, turning movements, high speeds, and not granting right-of-way. So once we got an understanding of some of the trends that were occurring for fatalities and serious injuries, we took a further and deeper look into a prioritization process to better understand these projects and countermeasures that we can start identifying. So similar to the local road safety plan, we analyzed what's called crash likelihood factors, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But we also use the Auburn Safety Priority Index system, which is something that Auburn has been using for many years now. And we identified safety emphasis corridors, which is something I'll also go into. We then evaluated those initial locations for any city projects that were already in place and whether or not they overlapped with a disadvantaged community and whether or not we received community feedback regarding that location to then come up with those projects and countermeasures, which we'll be talking about. Countermeasures meaning engineering-based solutions. So starting off with that Intersection Safety Priority Index score, or SPIS, we took a look at over 100 intersections, and we used both crash history and volume to understand the top SPIS SPIS intersections in Auburn. So you can see in red the highest tier intersections, yellow's medium, and orange is low. Some of the key locations that sort of jumped out to us was A Street. We were seeing a lot of red Auburn Way South, and 15th Street Northwest and Northeast. So that really is aligning with our next step of the analysis, which was these higher risk corridors. So what we did was analyze crash data to try to better understand what corridors were jumping out as, frequency of crashes along streets. So we identified these streets as 59% of these crashes occurred on only 6% of streets. So you can see a lot of the similar streets showing up, like A Street, Auburn Way, 15th Street. Then the next piece of the analysis, which should look very familiar because this is what we presented in the local road safety plan, is the risk factor identification. So using the factors that contributed to higher fatalities and serious injuries, we started to pull out segments of the street that overlapped with some of those pieces. So we were seeing posted speed limit greater than or equal to 35 miles an hour, street light spacing, commercial land use, and horizontal curves really jumping out to us. And those are the street segments overlaid to create this map. That was for the vehicle risk factors. For the vulnerable road user risk factors, we have the same top 3 factors, but it differs for factors 4 and 5. For vulnerable road users, we were really seeing, for bicyclists, people bicycling where the facility does not meet the city's LTS standard, and for pedestrians, sidewalks missing on one or both sides of the arterial or collector. So we did all of that data analysis and came up with some key locations, but we didn't stop there. So the next thing we did was screening these priority locations for any projects that were recent, underway, or planned, because we don't want to duplicate any efforts that were already going on, especially related to safety. And we wanted to consider what the community had to say, and any disadvantaged community layer that we could pull. So the one we pulled was US DOT Equitable Transportation Community Explorer tool. So it's a federal tool that we used. And then we wanted to identify specific projects, themes, and related countermeasures. So one thing to mention for the engagement, we released a web map the last time we spoke to you all. It only had 33 responses. So due to the lower number of responses, we supplemented that with the See Quick Fix tool and safety-related comments from the comp plan, just to get a better understanding of how people were really feeling on Auburn streets. So we ended up with a total of 351 public comments that we could use.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yeah, are we questions now or you want to wait to the end? I can hold it. I wrote it down.
It's up to
It's up to
you.
you.
We're pretty close. We're not that far.
Okay, I
Okay,
can wait.
let's hold
I can
off.
wait.
Okay.
I can wait.
So after we did all of that, we came up with these final priority project locations. So our main focus was really on the safety emphasis corridors that we presented, because 59% of crashes on 6% of streets is something that we really wanted to address. Locations with speeding and roadway curves. So you can see that in orange on the map. And then locations with vulnerable road user risk factors, which you can see in blue. So we came up with some segments and intersections that were really jumping out to us for all of those pieces that we analyzed. We also pulled in this green for street lighting, which was something that we pulled for the local road safety plan that we wanted to make sure that we're just incorporating in here to continue street lighting as an important factor. So with these pieces, we identified both engineering-related proven safety countermeasures and non-engineering countermeasures for these locations. We wanted to make sure that we identified measures to move the plan forward. So these bullet points here on the screen, oversight and accountability. So how do we keep this moving forward? Communication with stakeholders and community members, so keeping that conversation up. We know we didn't get a lot of responses for the web map, but how can we keep it moving? Funding, so how to track and pursue funding. The main piece of this is the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan grant. Identifying target metrics and measuring performance to both measure outcomes and track and report on performance, which is the next slide we'll be discussing. How to phase and sequence this. You know, this is a plan, but we can't just go out tomorrow and put it on the ground. So what does our timing look like and horizons in place for both ongoing and long-term? And then what are the steps to update the plan regularly? So as a piece of this plan, as I mentioned, we created a safety report card to be included and updated every other year. As part of this, we want to measure these aspects. So the reduction in fatalities and serious injuries, KSIs or fatal and serious injury crashes involving vulnerable road users, those vulnerable road user crashes, fatalities specifically, KSIs on those safety emphasis corridors, and then, that's the measures to track over time.
Okay, so talking a little bit more about Resolution 5789, that will be considered next week. That resolution does a few things. One, it adopts this Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, which ultimately will become part of the Comprehensive Transportation Plan. It also establishes what our safety vision is as a city. So as Taylor said, our vision is that eventually we get to a point where there are no fatalities and no serious injuries happening on our roadways. So that's our long-term vision that we work towards through a goal that the resolution also establishes. So this goal is a goal that is intentional in being specific, measurable, and attainable. And this goal established with this resolution would be that we would achieve a 30% reduction in the fatalities and serious injuries by 2040. So what does that mean? If you look back at our safety report card, the goal would be by 2040, our safety report card, we have a reduction in KSI crashes from 34 to 24. We have a reduction in the KSI or the serious injury fatality crashes involving PEDs, bicyclists, and motorcycles, or those vulnerable roadway users from 9 to 6. Fatalities reduced down to 5, and KSI crashes on safety emphasis corridors reduced from 21 to 15. Now, the resolution also includes a term that the mayor could adjust this goal to maintain realistic progress towards the vision. It'd be great if we did much better this and we actually achieved some of these metrics prior to 2040. If we did so, then we would then look at adjusting the goal to do even more and to keep reaching towards that long-term vision of eventually reaching zero for all. So the next steps, like I said, next week will be the consideration of the resolution 5789, followed by adoption of the Comprehensive Transportation Plan by the end of the year. And then we'll continue our work actually on implementing the different projects and the programs that are described in the plan. And then in 2026, we would prepare an update to the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan and the first 2026 safety report card to see how we're doing, working to achieve that goal and working towards the vision. That's the end of our presentation.
Okay. Council, any questions?
Thank you, Chair. I had one question. So when you said, excuse me, overlap with disadvantaged communities, so what determines that and what areas have we identified as falling under disadvantaged communities?
Yes, So the tool that we used is a federal tool called it's a long one, Equitable Transportation Community Explorer Tool. And it tracks a number of metrics. They're laid out in the the plan, the CSAP, what exactly it tracks. Basically, we chose this because you can choose one of two tools for grant funding for this specific grant. And there's many metrics that you can track.
Yeah, and so just to add to that, the map that's on the screen here, which is in the plan, the pinkish purple light shaded area is the area that the tool that Taylor was referring to identified as being the disadvantage or the equity focus areas.
Okay.
Generally, these communities are found to be more reliant on active transportation and transits. That means they rely more on biking and walking and transit than other areas throughout the city. So in these areas, we would likely focus more on some of the blue projects and programs identified, which are addressing the need for vulnerable roadway users, looking at additional bike lanes and sidewalks and things that address some of those. So those type of countermeasures would be more applicable in that area.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jacob Taylor. Appreciate your presentation tonight. I have a couple of questions since I love transportation stuff. Looking at the highest value of SPIS intersections, would those be appropriate locations for red light cameras or like red light camera enforcement?
Yeah, so the camera enforcement is actually one of the identified countermeasures in the plan. Currently, the city does have automated camera enforcement in school speed zones, and we are seeing success in bringing down speeds and getting better compliance in those areas. So the plan does recommend photo enforcement as a particular countermeasure. And I think the next steps as part of the implementation of the plan would be to look at studying the expansion of the photo enforcement. And that could include looking at additional school zones, looking at speed zones outside of school zones, and it could, of course, include red light camera enforcement as well.
Yes, Councilwoman Trees.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm looking at Auburn Way South, State Route 164. That is also a WashDOT state route. Are we looking to partner with them in some form to help with like the traffic reduction, safety emphasis? Are they willing to work with us as a partner in that stretch of roadway?
Yes and no.
Okay.
The yes of it is the state has some grant programs that we definitely have worked to get some funding. So for instance, some of the new sidewalks that you've seen recently installed were through grants awarded by the state. So they've been great partners when it comes to getting some grant funding there. The other part of it too is it's always a question of who's going to pay for it. And so we've worked with the state, identified some potential improvements, but then it's a matter of, is it a priority for the state? Sometimes it's not as a high enough priority to get it funded, and other times we have seen success. So
Go ahead.
So in that same breath, I would say, in State Route 164, would the tribe be interested in working with us and maybe partnering with us to find some safety emphasis in there as well?
yes, and they have been.
Okay.
So you may have heard us talk about, we have great coordination with the tribe, in particular the transit and the transportation group. We meet with them monthly, and we talk with them about potential safety improvements. And we actually have a memorandum of understanding executed with the tribe that says that we will work together to try to put in facilities to address the vulnerable roadway users along and adjacent to SR 164. And that's led to at least 3 or 4 projects so far that we've been able to partner with them on and move forward.
Okay, I'm going to ask one question myself, so hold your thought. On the green level, where you've got that round loop right here, where's that exactly?
Or is that?
It's green right here?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So that was an identified corridor on Orvis Road between Kersey Way and say the I guess the high school, Riverside High School area.
So is it heavily used?
So that corridor, it does see a fair amount of traffic. The type of project identified there would be a street lighting project, so there are some curbs. And there's guardrail, which is nice, but this study identified that the addition of street lighting along the corridor could help reduce the likelihood of a KSI crash.
Okay, then on the other area, is that 15th?
Yeah, 15th.
15th Street? Where exactly from one end to the other, Auburn Way, south?
So West Valley
West
Highway.
Valley Highway, so that
Yeah,
overpass
and
and stuff?
And there is street lighting there, but there's some areas where there's gaps in the street lighting. So
Okay,
again, the study identified that gaps in street lighting was a crash likelihood factor. So we looked for opportunities where we might be able to potentially go for some grant funding to get some additional street lighting to address that issue.
okay, thank you very much. Councilwoman Teresa Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. With the lower response, was that, I would say, siphoned out with different languages as well? Okay. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah, it was a piece. There you could click an option.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Council, any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next on the agenda for council discussion, ordinance number 6951, provided by, same person? Mr.
No,
Oh,
Amber, actually.
Amber.
Yeah, so Amber Olds will be coming up and giving you a quick briefing for this franchise.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, Mayor, and council members. As Ingrid said, Amber Olds, right-of-way specialist for Transportation Division, here tonight to discuss draft ordinance number 6951 for franchise agreement number FRN 23-0002 for T-Mobile West LLC's wireless telecommunications facilities. Under Title 20 of the Auburn City Code and consistent with federal and state law, telecommunication companies that want to locate their facilities in the city's public ways are required to obtain a franchise agreement with the city. The applicant's facilities provide wireless data communication services utilizing specific wireless telecommunication facilities. Those facilities are identified and described in Exhibit A of the ordinance on page 183 of 253 in your agenda packet. The three facilities are located on the hills of Auburn. There are two on the West Hill and one on Lee Hill. T-Mobile's existing wireless facilities are located in the public way and were authorized under franchise agreement number 13-37 under ordinance number 6709, which recently expired. They have applied for a new agreement so that they can continue to operate their existing facilities and continue to provide wireless and data communication services to their customers. Their application was reviewed and found to be complete per the city's code requirements, and the proposed agreement is consistent with the city's standard form agreement and other agreements of this type. The agreement would be valid for a term of 15 years. Future alterations, repairs, upgrades, improvements for their existing facilities would require them to obtain construction permits, which are managed through the city's permitting processes and a requirement of the franchise agreement. If T-Mobile wishes to construct any new facilities at new locations, they would be required to get an amendment to this franchise because this particular franchise is site-specific and only for their existing locations in their current locations. In bringing this franchise agreement forward to council for review, city staff have verified that it meets the code requirements that city council must base your determination on. Public hearing to consider the application and hear public comment is scheduled for, I have the wrong date written down here, October 7th, I believe. And I'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Council, do you have any questions? No? Okay, thank you
Thank you so
for
much.
the information. Next on the agenda is Resolution 5785, provided by City Attorney.
Yeah, Yes, so we'll actually have the property manager, Josh Arndt, and our airport manager, Tim Mancinides, come up and give you a briefing on both this item and the next item.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah. So as Ingrid mentioned, Tim and I are going to be with you here for the next two resolution presentations. First up on this list is going to be Resolution 5785. And that resolution is a proposal that we have to implement, or for council to consider an amendment to how we implement a fair market value rate increase out at the airport. So with that said, for the record, I'm Josh Arndt, the real estate manager, and with me tonight.
Tim Mancinides, airport manager.
Okay. So all of our airport land leases are subject to periodic rental rate adjustments based upon a fair market value. That fair market value is determined through an appraisal process. And the appraisal that we recently had done came back with a land lease rate of $1.35 per square foot per year. That represented roughly a 35% increase to the current rate that's being charged out there. So right now, all the airport tenants are paying $1 a foot. This new rate, or this new appraisal, came back at $1.35 a foot. So obviously that's a fairly significant increase to our tenants and our tenant base out there. The way the lease reads is this fair market value adjustment would be implemented beginning June 1, all at one time. January 1. That's why he's here. All at one time. And so, again, creating a fairly substantial financial burden. And so Tim and I got together, came up with some ideas, and it's this idea that we wanted to bring forward tonight for your consideration next week. And that being, rather than implement the full 35% increase all in 1 year, our proposal is let's implement it over the next 3 years. So 25, 26, and 27. And the way that we broke it down is in 2025, the land lease tenants would see roughly a 10% increase over what they're paying now. And 2026 would be roughly another 10% increase. And then in 2027, it equates out to be slightly more than yet another 10% increase. This reduces the average monthly rate that the tenants out there are paying down from what would be an increase of almost $77 a month down to roughly $22 a month. So in considering this, obviously we have to consider the impact to the airport's budget. As you're all aware, we're in the middle of budgeting season right now. And so in talking with Tim, and he can certainly share more about this, he generally will factor in a 2% increase to his operational budget year over year. So our thought, raising it 10%, obviously we're not shortcutting the budget, or at least what was budgeted for that in doing this implementation. And then the other thing to consider is, so the way the leases read is the years where we don't have these fair market value adjustments, we do have an adjustment, but it's based on CPI, CPI being an indicator of inflation. So again, if we go back to that 10% increase, then we look at, well, what is CPI? Obviously, we're all familiar, we're all aware that inflation has been very high over the last few years, but even at its highest, it wasn't at 10%, right? So we're keeping up, and in fact, exceeding the value of the dollar. We're meeting and exceeding our new budget implementations. So what this does is it allows us to be cognizant that we're not handcuffing ourselves in terms of budget, but we're also being, I guess, good landlords and good stewards of the property to our tenants out there. So, anything to add?
Just to add, airport city staff have worked hard over the last 5 to 6 years and restoring and fostering great relationships with our tenants and users. And this takes another step in showing that. And the tenants I've spoken with at this affects have expressed their gratitude and thank us for considering it.
Good. Council, do you have any questions? Good job. Next. You're
Welcome
gonna
back.
do the next, do you still have more to give?
No,
Okay.
not on this one.
On the next agenda.
Does-
Oh, I apologize.
I'm sorry, I was looking at this real
Okay,
quick.
Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you. So you said 10, 10, and what's because you said roughly around about.
Yeah,
So is
it's not 15%, right? Because percentages, whole numbers change based on what your base is. So it's like 10%, 10%, and roughly 12-ish% is what it actually equates. But it's a 35-cent increase over 3 years.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Nope. Okay, next agenda,
Us again.
you again.
All right. Okay. So the second item on the list is Resolution 5786. And what this is this is basically just a shuffling of some tenants that are located in our airport administration office right now. And so what I'm going to pass around to you is actually what you have. It's page 227 of your packet. However, when I was looking at that, there was some stuff that bled through. And so this is just a cleaner copy. So I'm going to pass this around. Sean, I have one for you too, if you need. So give it a second for that to get around.
I would have been.
All right, so what I just passed around and what you're looking at is a black line of our airport administration building. In blue, we have tenant A, and in red, we have tenant B. Both tenant A and B are both flight training operations. Tenant A recently declined to exercise a 3-year option term available to them in their lease. So as part of their declining to exercise that option, that set forth an expiration date of December 31st, an expiration date of their lease in blue of December 31st, 2024, so the end of this month. However, they also did express to us that while they understand the terms of the lease, if something were to come available where some other tenant might want their space, they would certainly be willing to execute an early termination if that was an available option to them. Tenant B, currently they operate off of a month-to-month lease, but they are interested in, one, adding additional space to the space that they already have, and two, entering into a long-term lease. So tenant B is interested in taking over tenant A's space. So the red would become red all over, and including their existing space. And they're interested in a new lease that would have a 5-year initial term plus 2 additional 5-year option terms, so a total of up to 15 years. They would be willing to pay market rate rent, so we wouldn't be losing or seeing a reduction in rent with having tenant B gone, or excuse me, tenant A gone. and then it would be subject to market rate adjustments based upon those exercise options. So, that's all I have, unless you have anything to add to that.
The airport's excited about this. Tenant B has been asking for additional space every month. And they actually expressed they were on the month to month just to see how much they would succeed at Auburn, and they have hit it out of the park and are more than willing to enter into a longer term lease with the airport. So a side factor too is Tenant B has the flight training agreement with Green River, and their operation, they have operations all over the Puget Sound, and their operation at Auburn is their fastest growing one.
So I guess let me just clarify that Resolution 5786 would be authorizing the mayor to execute an early termination agreement with tenant A and then executing the long-term agreement with tenant B.
But did you say that tenant A wants to take over the A? I mean,
Tenant B wants to continue leasing their existing space plus take over tenant A's, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes,
I'm sorry, can we just,
Councilmember Teal.
thank you. Can we have, the timeline again on that? Cause you said this month, or is it December?
So
Sorry, I
the,
was
no, it's a good question. So, when tenant A did not exercise their option
Correct.
term, that set forth an expiration date of their lease of December 31st, 2024.
Right.
This new early termination agreement as part of Resolution 5786 would actually terminate their lease October 21st. So speeding that up by a little over 2 months. And then the new long-term lease with tenant B would begin November 1st.
Thank you.
Gives them some time to turn the space over and prepare it for them.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. Yes, Councilwoman Teal.
Thank you, Chair. So the question is with tenant A possibly leaving, have they already relocated or have they found another space?
Their space here is a satellite operation. Their main space is up at Pierce County Airport on South Hill.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
For
Thank you.
clearing that up.
Yeah.
Good to have a tenant in waiting, huh?
Yeah.
Eager.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, next, council discussion is the school board measure provided by the mayor.
Yes.
Mayor Backus.
Thank you very much. Just briefly, council is allowed to weigh in on local ballot measures via resolution. And this is, let's see, allowable activities, legislative body motions and resolutions. A local governing body such as a city council or a county or special purpose district board of commissioners may vote on a motion or resolution to express support of or opposition to a ballot proposition, provided that the legislative body follows the required procedural steps. However, elected officials may not campaign during public comment at public meetings of their agency's governing board. There is, as you may know, an upcoming ballot measure for the Auburn School District. And this is, let's see here, I believe it's a $500 million bond measure. And that is to build 3 new schools, a new middle school, and it's noted they have enough students in 41 portables to fill a 5th middle school. A replacement for Cascade Middle School, which is 57 years old, and Alpac Elementary, which is 52 years old. And there's also a $64 million portion of that bond measure for safety and security upgrades and major maintenance for 16 other schools. And that would include lighting and fencing and other safety and security measures, such as limited points of access into the schools. So the school district has asked if the city council would be willing to approve such a resolution. And since this council has never gone through that, I wanted to bring it to your attention this evening for potential action next Monday night at the council meeting. It would be a resolution in support of the upcoming ballot measure, bond measure for the Auburn School District. So if there is consensus, not any voting, but if there is concern about bringing it forward, or if there is support for bringing it forward, that is what we want to identify this evening. Do we have nodding heads for bringing it forward next week? Okay, I've counted more than 4. So, all right, so we will have that agenda item on next week's council agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, because I know that a lot of the schools and constituents have been asking about some of the older schools, if we were going to be doing anything, and so that is great to bring it back to council. Thank you. With that, the last item on the agenda for council discussion is the council rules and procedures provided by City Clerk Campbell. And we are going to take a 5-minute break while she gets herself settled. Okay, so we come back at 6:19. Mr. Clinton, you were missed.
Pardon me?
You were missed the other day.
You know about the tour? Yeah, I was out of town. Now I'm in Virginia.
Next.
Not again, I'm sorry.
Okay, we are back to, council's back to order, so let's go on with our procedures, policy and procedures. Question?
Or more of a comment.
Yes.
If at all possible, I would like to see, and this is just me speaking from my own perspective, if we could get through this tonight. Because I feel like, this is, and I've lost track. I think we're on like session 6 or 7 or somewhere around there discussing this, and I appreciate all of the work that went into the committee working on the document, all of the comments and feedback that have taken place, and we still have another section tonight. So I would just ask if we would just collectively try to get through this tonight and not have to bring it back, because looking at what's left there, I don't personally feel like, within an hour, that's not enough time for us to get through that. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Chair Hanan.
Thank you. Go ahead, Liz.
So we have gotten all the way through section 12A, and now we're on to section 12B. This is simply a gender neutral term, so I think everybody agrees to that, yes? Down to section 12F. Just as a note, there are no more edits that came to me through council except for section 12.2.2, so I'm gonna stay off of that document until we get to that section. So we're just here in this document. Section 12F, everybody can read what this says. Do I have consensus to leave it as it is, or are there some edits that we'd like to make? I can scroll a little bit more in just a second. That's the end of it, so it's all on the screen. So do I have consensus to leave it as it is proposed? I'm only seeing 3 heads. So are we still looking? Okay.
I was just waiting to hear if there were any other comments.
I just have a comment, since they've taken out the seniority. Oh, I apologize, I'm looking at her since she's.
Go ahead.
chair. Okay. Since they've taken out the seniority out of there, we're back to, again, as having a brand new council, and to put somebody in there over someone that has been here a little longer than them is kind of, to me, it's a little concerning. But that's just me saying that.
Any other comment? Go ahead, Kate.
This is probably more of a clarifying question. So if we have a deputy mayor who's out, that would leave us at a head count of 6 council members that'll be performing the vote. So if there's a split, there's nothing in here as far as, it just says until there's a majority vote. So is that assuming that it would need to be a 4-2?
A split loses, and so if it's a split, we'd have to vote again until it wasn't a split.
I would have to say, sorry,
Yes.
I'm here. Great. I would have to say in a way, I kind of agree with Yolanda because a brand new, council member that maybe is just finishing their first year, there's so much to learn in there. And I don't know if the senior member, if that's like a good term for it, but I think there's some questionability there.
So I look all to the historical data of all the resolution. I find that the seniority added in 2019. So if you think of it, it's temporary. It's like deputy mayor. We have, let's say, someone been in council 2 years and him being deputy mayor and mayor absent. Do we say it's a new council? He cannot be cover the mayor. So it's go both way. And this is for short term. Like deputy mayor, let's say deputy mayor Clinton, he will say I'm going vacation for 3 weeks. He's still here. Let's vote for someone in my absent. So kind of we have a rules in case something happen future, we'll be voting for someone to represent us. So our vote go. That's what I'm thinking. Yes.
I think knowing that it needs to have a majority vote and knowing that as a body we're supposed to be self-governing, I think having it be a vote where we get a majority and we keep going till we get a majority solves potentially for that question of seniority or readiness, right? If you have the confidence of your counterparts, you could get the position. If you don't have it, then you're not going to get their vote, and so
True.
There it is.
It keeps us, it keeps us self-governing in that space. I know we had talked last time about whether or not we would want the deputy mayor to seek the additional certifications. I still think that's probably a good idea, but I am comfortable with this because I think it allows the body to manage itself. In addition to this section and the section we see later, which is if that person's elected and the body decides that they're not the right person for the role, the majority of council can always bring it back for another vote and change it out again. So I think that provides some checks and balances to the position. And I know I value seniority, so that would probably play into my votes, but we have to let, I think, the body determine what the body needs to do.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I did go back and I looked at the AWC guidelines, and it does have the certificate of municipal leadership, and it does have the 30 hours and the 60 hours. They're still in there, and those are the ones that we have always gone through. I've had several phone calls from past council members that are asking why are we taking that out of there and putting in new council members that don't have that leadership certificate. So I printed it out and I forgot to bring it because I wanted to give it to Sean so she can distribute it to everybody because it's right there on that page. So I'm still on that council members at least should have those 2 certificates to be able to take leadership.
Okay, so that isn't this section here.
Oh, I thought it was on this section. Okay.
It's above.
It's the section above. So real quick, for this section that we have here, do I have consensus to go forward with the proposed edits? I see a nodding of majority of the heads. And so, Councilmember, the municipal, you're asking to get consensus of the council to add that all council members have to receive their municipal leadership CML?
It would be nice to have all of us have that.
Is there a consensus of the council to add that in where it's appropriate?
No. Go ahead, Kate, before I'm speaking.
Yeah, I think if I understand your clarification is where we have the requisites for someone to be nominated for the role of deputy mayor, is that your intention is that it should be a prereq for those applying for that position?
We're not talking about deputy mayor here. We're talking about the acting deputy mayor.
I
I
think,
understand.
Yeah, okay.
I believe it would have been 12A
Yes.
as an addition to that.
So do I see consensus of council to go back to 12A?
No, I think we decided from last week we're not going back to anything, so.
If there's a consensus of the council,
Okay.
we'll go back.
I'm just giving
So
my
I'm
thought.
asking if, do we have a consensus of the council to go back to 12A?
Yeah, I think for that one.
So I saw 4 heads nod. So the suggestion has been made to add a requirement to 12A to include that in order for somebody to be nominated, they have to have their CML.
Go ahead, Tracy.
What's the typical, how long does it take to get 60 hours? Because quite frankly,
CML is 30.
oh, is it 30?
30.
Okay. So,
The advanced, then it's more.
okay. Okay. So technically, already, all of us should have that. If we went to the conference, if we went to the training,
You would have the majority. I don't think you'd have all of it yet.
No.
But then the rest you could take online a little bit easier.
I'm sorry, you need to ask to the floor, respond to the floor. Go ahead.
oh, no, I'm just saying, from my understanding is that if we went to the new council member thing for AEWC in Olympia,
Yeah.
that was a full day, so that was 8 hours. And we went to the conference, and that was 2 days, and that was 8 hours. So technically, we have, 24 hours, so we need, right?
And hold on, I want to ask the mayor. The
No,
mayor, is that correct?
as the mayor is
Be-
here as a guest.
Mayor as a guest, but
Can answer your question.
Well,
can
yeah, but
ask
this
her-
is our council
it's
and
Yolanda.
our meeting. And we
We-
can ask our attorney,
No,
Or
think
we
you
can
have the
ask.
floor.
You don't have the floor.
I apologize.
So
Okay.
that question, who know the answer? We need the accurate answer. Mayor, can you go ahead, Larry?
What is the question that you asked?
It's what Councilmember Tracy Taylor mentioned, that it's,
So it's not necessarily that there are 8 hours worth of credits or classes each day. You can always see how many credits are available, and then the expectation, I believe, is that you notify AWC of which classes you attended, so they can give you the appropriate credits. And it could be, there's an emphasis in different areas. So I believe there are like 5 or 6 different areas of emphasis on CML, Certificate of Municipal Leadership. And you may have, it may require 5 credits in DEI and 10 in leadership. And of those 15 hours, you may have 10 in DEI and 5 in municipal leadership. So it doesn't necessarily equate. Just because you have 15 hours does not mean they're all applicable to the CML.
thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Councilmember Emmer. I think if I understand the crux of your question is getting that certificate feasible within the first year of office? And I think the answer to that is yes. So between the events that you would typically participate in as being invited as a council member of Auburn, plus the additional on-demand classes that you can watch via the AWC website, I believe that it is. We have Councilmember Rakes, who is not 2 years in?
This is my second year.
Yeah, and has managed to achieve her. So I think that it is doable within a year if someone is, intent on getting it and going through those steps. I think the goal of it is, as the mayor described, there's a number of areas related to, the functions of being in the role that would provide support for that individual coming into that position. So I know that's why I think it's a good idea, is it just means that they're going to be more ready to take on those responsibilities.
Thank you. Go ahead.
To answer that question, your NLC conferences count too, but with them, you have to keep your agenda of the classes you took and turn that into AWC, and then they add those credits to it.
Thank you.
So then, thank you, Chair. So I guess the question I pose into this would be, are we comfortable instead of having 60 hours, having at 30 hours? Because then technically, we would have the requirements. So we don't need to have 60, but we should have 30. Are we comfortable with that?
I have comment. So,
Can I just real quick?
go.
The request was to have the CML, which is the 30 hours.
Okay. From what I understood from acting deputy mayor Troutman Well was she wanted 60 in there, so I wasn't quite sure on what we were asking for.
She asking to have the certificate be required to select deputy mayor. For me, personally, someone who believe in include everybody, that will lock our limit who we select. If in the next year, maybe we get someone who will spend 1 year, but during their work, they have issue, they cannot get the certificate. If we doing it, I feel like we're being limit ourselves rather than we select body we feel we wanted. We say like, no, we want you to go like in school. We think you finish the certificate mean you have a different skill. Technically, you said everybody can finish online, but my comment, why we need to add it to say we need to have our person to do that. When being elected, all of us, they didn't say what certificate or degree you need to have. Go ahead, ma'am.
Would it be appropriate to simply put in there, it is highly encouraged or recommended that anyone who is the deputy mayor has their CML, but that will leave some room for situations that you may not be thinking of at the moment.
Go ahead. Councilmember Clinton Taylor.
So I'm a little confused. Are we talking about that the individual that is the deputy mayor needs to, or should strongly suggest to have these 30 hours of their CML, or are we talking about the interim person?
I think
It is the deputy mayor.
it's the deputy mayor.
No, I know that. Are we saying that the interim person, in order to be considered to fill that role, needs to have those 30 hours? Because that's what we started off talking about.
We rolled back up. There was a consensus of the council to go back to 12A, which is about the election of the deputy mayor.
Okay, got it. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Go ahead.
From my standpoint, the reason I'm more comfortable opening it up to say, what gives me comfort moving away from a seniority position is saying that at minimum, whoever's going to step into that role will have had the personal accountability to go complete the certificate of municipal leadership. I think if someone comes in and they're here for a year and they really want it and they go for it and they do the training and they do the work, that's going to make me much more likely to support them in that position. And I think from an accountability perspective, if we're going to have people step in and serve in that role, I need to know that they know what they're doing. And so that's going to give me confidence not only for our current governing body, but even into the future, that if we have that as a requirement for nomination for, in my estimation, either deputy mayor or interim, that's going to bode well for the future of council. So my willingness to be flexible around moving away from seniority is to still have an expectation that we can at least achieve that threshold of training and preparedness that I think should be, duly earned by the person who's going to want to serve in that position. So I understand having openness to anybody who wants to get it, but nobody's stopping anyone here from going and getting that, should we want to.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Councilwoman Baldwin, for articulating everything and the reasons why it's important for us to make sure that we take those leadership trainings. It has been encouraged for us to do it. When I first came in, I was very highly encouraged for us new council members to take that leadership certificate A and the 30 and the 60 hours from AWC. It doesn't hurt anybody to take it. You can take them online. You can get it on your own time. The conferences are you get 10 points for them and everything. So I don't see what the issue is with having it put into our policy and procedures to make sure, like Councilwoman Baldwin articulate, we at least are gonna have somebody that has taken those leadership meetings and training and everything, and we feel confident that that person's going to step in and do a good job. Not saying that none of us here don't have the ability to be able to be deputy mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Taylor. But it does help to be able to have those, so we can look at that as well. Thank you.
Personally, I prefer to have a pre-fair, not doing it. I can finish it because, as you said, it's online. Personally, I can spend a day or something, finish it, especially when we online that qualified me, maybe not. First, I feel to open it for everybody should be recommended. But if the body think, yes, we need to have it, then fine. If we think still okay. Go ahead, Councilman.
I will say, just because I took them, it's like any job, like furthering your education. And I tell you, it was kind of a confidence booster because you learn so many different things that I wouldn't have learned just sitting on council. So I actually really enjoyed it for the stuff that I learned and got the little confidence booster that, gee, maybe I know this stuff. So that's just my take on it. And I'll tell you, it took me just a little over a year because when I got sick, I had to finish it afterwards. Otherwise, I would have had it done. So, I mean, you're already going to the conferences. You're already going to everything. The points add up. And something you can put on your resume someday.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna see if we have a consensus for required. If we do not have a consensus for required, I'll see if we have a consensus for recommended. If we don't have a consensus for that, we'll leave it alone. Do I have a consensus for required? I see 4 heads.
Let me flip to the next.
I'm just gonna make a note right here. 1 second, sorry. So I'm gonna add where it's appropriate, a required CML to be nominated to be deputy mayor. Okay. So the next section is 12H. And we just added the additional words of interim deputy mayor. Does anybody have any concerns about 12H?
Go ahead, Councilmember Kate.
Yeah, my only question is, in section F, the last statement is that the interim deputy mayor shall have all the rights, duties, and authority of the deputy mayor under these rules. And so given that it's already named in H, I don't know if we need to have, or pardon me, already named in F, I don't know if we need it in H. It just feels duplicative.
No, but if you're talking about H, it includes the time. Okay, okay, let me read it. I think we're missing the part, whereas if you look to it, for H, the city council by majority of the vote remove the deputy mayor. We don't have it in F. So that's the part. If you mean combined.
No, what I'm saying is that the changes that we would be approving in section H by having the parentheses or interim deputy mayor, parentheses or interim deputy mayor, parentheses or interim deputy mayor is redundant because we have already established in section F that with the last sentence, the interim deputy mayor shall have all the rights, duties, and authorities of the interim deputy mayor.
Okay, fine.
So I was just saying we don't need to add it because it's already
It's fine.
established.
Okay. I thought you want to remove, I want to even to it. Yeah,
No, just we're looking at the edits and
So do we have a consensus to not edit this section?
No, hold on. Because if you look to it, this part, that means we put deputy mayor. This one include both in case we want to remove by majority. So if we, that's the part, in which case council elect the next deputy mayor or remove it. I don't think we have it in the top. So if we have put deputy mayor, we cannot remove it. And if we keep F, the majority of council receive the vote until be returned. That's what we have in the top. Until the deputy mayor will return. But if you look here, it's a clear like both. You can put mayor, deputy mayor, and the majority can remove it. If we remove the interim deputy mayor, that means we cannot remove it because you remove him from here. That's what I'm seeing it.
So you're saying, Councilmember, that you believe that the only way you could remove an interim deputy mayor is by leaving it in this section?
Yes, we leave it this section, it will be clear. That's the reason for clarity. Because we elected, but we did not put any part where we can remove the interim. Go ahead.
I think in how I've read most things is that because of the statement of at whatever point there's an interim deputy mayor, they're effectively the deputy mayor for that time being. So I would consider section H still to be applicable. If you feel that it's more specific by adding it, then I would just drop the parentheses and
Oh yeah, I think we'll be in top.
redirect. But regardless of whether it's deputy or interim, my belief is that council as a governing body can have a majority vote to do just about anything it wants to do.
We go by our rules, but yeah, we can remove it. So just for legality, that's me.
So do I have consensus?
From a legal standpoint, does it provide better clarity to have?
Kate, you,
Yeah,
Chair,
great
can I direct it to legal?
yes, go ahead.
From a legal standpoint, are we established that the interim deputy mayor is the deputy mayor in section H, or is it sturdier by having it specified?
It's open to less interpretation if the phrase or interim deputy mayor remains in section 8 or is added to section H. But I think either way, the argument would be correct that because the interim deputy mayor takes over the roles and responsibilities of the deputy mayor, you wouldn't need to necessarily list it separately, but it does clear any confusion.
Just, yeah.
So do I have consensus to leave it in all
Sure.
3 places? Okay, moving on. This is a new section. Do I have consensus to keep I? Okay, wonderful. Section 12.1. We're just adding or interim deputy mayor. Do I have consensus where we've added that language throughout the document to leave it at this time? Councilmember Amber?
Yes.
Yeah, I just have one comment. I think that by nature of adding it in certain places, that is likely to introduce more confusion because, you know, on the off chance we forget to have it next to deputy mayor on one of the myriad of references, I think that that will then begin to call it more likely into question of when is it deputy or when is it interim, when the statement that we have in F is making it, at least to me, abundantly clear that that is the person serving in that capacity. So as we add these in spots, I would ask maybe, you know, if we need to go through and reference both at every interval, that we would need to go do kind of a search and find on that to make sure that we don't miss any.
Go ahead. Yes.
I think I completely agree with what you're you're saying.
Can you turn your mic on for me, please?
I agree with what you're saying. I think that that's something that the council can give the authority to the clerk to do that search and find so that it says deputy or interim deputy mayor throughout the entire document.
Do I have consensus of the council to do that through the document?
Yeah.
Okay. The next item is removing item A2. Do I have consensus to remove this item?
Yes.
What's the difference of ex officio? I'm asking,
You're asking me?
yes, go ahead.
Ex officio is an additional member. It's a member that is always a part of it. It is not something that we have always done, even though it's been a part of the rules. And so you have to have, an example is you have the deputy mayor and then 2 council members. Anytime you pick that 3rd council member, it becomes an open public meeting.
Go ahead. Just a minute. The reason why I was asking, because I've never have ever heard us use that, so thank you for clearing that up.
The deputy mayor has been, I believe, a part of every ad hoc committee that there has been. For the very reason that if we have 4, it becomes an open public meeting. So the ex officio member has always been the deputy mayor.
I'm sorry, we just didn't use it as a term.
Right.
That's all I needed to, that's why I just wanted to clear that up, because I had never heard it. I've always known that the deputy mayor and 2 other people were in the ad hoc committee. I wasn't clear what ex officio meant, was in there for. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, the reason for context that we would have the deputy mayor always a member is because the deputy mayor serves the council to work with the clerk, to work with the mayor and administration around putting together our agendas. And so because of the nature of ad hoc committees being that they meet separate from the standard meetings, at some point those committees have to come, get on the agenda, get represented, and bring their things into session. So the challenge that would be created if we didn't have the deputy mayor as a standing member of any ad hocs is that if you have 3 people and they have to work with the deputy mayor, you instantly introduce quorum challenges. So by having the deputy mayor always a member, you're more likely to avoid breaking quorum rules. And by nature of, again, that position being the one that works to get things on agendas and bring things forward, to me it makes sense to keep it. And so I would work to keep that because I think from an operational standpoint, it makes the most sense.
So for ad hoc, if you go when we have the selection ad hoc, deputy mayor can nominate themselves, so he will be part, they will be part of it. And they may not in future, deputy mayor, they don't want to be part of it. They want the 3, they want to nominate someone else. So that allowed it to be, either they could be part of it or not. That's, if you go look to the selection ad hoc, deputy mayor, they can nominate themselves or someone else, and the other will be by 2 different way nomination. That's the reason we remove it. So will not be open to the public.
I asked where you saw that.
It's in the new here, we added here, this is the update.
I know, but I have never heard of a deputy mayor not wanting to be in a ad hoc committee or excuse themselves out. Because whatever is brought to council and to the mayor, the ad hoc should be present. I know that you put that in, but I'm glad you brought it up because I wanted to make sure that I have never seen or heard deputy mayor excuse himself from an ad hoc committee.
Talking to the public, look into the historical, the way being the ad hoc. So this was, if you look from the day we have the ordinance in 2004 up to 2023, the change being happened. So there were no deputy mayor in the ad hoc. They did not have deputy mayor in the the beginning of the years. So
I can't, again, as I'm saying, I have
That's
never,
okay.
in my time here, I have never seen a deputy mayor step out of an ad hoc committee.
Kate.
Thanks. So I think part of the shift that we saw historically with that is that our study sessions used to be considered full voting meetings. And when we had full voting meetings in study session, it would be easier to not necessarily need the deputy mayor to get things on the agenda or to have those conversations. Because we have moved away from having these study sessions as voting meetings, I think that's when we saw that change into having the deputy mayor in the ad hoc committees as a standing member to make sure that things could move fluidly between ad hocs into council sessions. So not to say it hasn't been different historically, but the context of it historically is that the meetings themselves were handled differently at the time, and as that has shifted, so has the membership of the committees. So in our current structure, by having study sessions where we are not voting, I think that keeping this is the best course of action to facilitate whomever's in those committees in the future being able to easily bring stuff forward to the body.
Okay. Do I,
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just have a comment because I'm confused a little bit. So if we, my thoughts straight, how would the deputy mayor then, if he wasn't part of an ad hoc committee, relay stuff to the mayor to put on the agenda? I just don't know where that falls in.
Okay, before I speak, go ahead, Council.
I believe from what I understand of this is that if it's something like if there wasn't a deputy mayor in an ad hoc committee, it would be the chair of that ad hoc committee to report back to the mayor. So it wouldn't necessarily need the deputy mayor to provide that information. The chair of that ad hoc committee could.
Or
provide
report to the body in the meeting, the chair
That too.
report to the body in the meeting as we do when we have our meeting. As if you look at our agenda, ad hoc chair report to the body. So we'll allow the body to hear it, not direct to the mayor, to the whole body. Because if you look how our meeting being built, all the time, if you look at it's ad hoc chair to report to the body. That's how the body will hear it. Will not be select 2 or 3 or. Yes.
When we had our ad hoc committee for this, I chose not to be the chair. I chose to let one of you to be chair. I could have been the chair, but I chose not to. And that's how it's always been when there's an ad hoc committee. The ad hoc, you were chair at your ad hoc committee. And so it's not that a deputy mayor is not present, because there always has been a deputy mayor present at an ad hoc committee. And there's been chairs running the meetings.
I was answering Cheryl's question when she said who will be reporting or how to go, like how we know about it. So I mentioned it, the chair will report during the meeting to the body.
okay,
So
do we have consensus to remove this section? I do not see consensus. We will leave it as it is. Okay. Adding the staff liaison portion?
So, go ahead, Kate.
I was just gonna say, for this section, I think there's 2 different things happening. I think that there's a deputy mayor or interim deputy mayor assisting in new council member training, which is one thing. And I think that there is the activity of conducting a review of rules and procedures as a separate thing. And so I was just gonna recommend that we split that out.
Thank you. Mayor.
Thank you. Just in the last part of that sentence, provided the mayor is notified of the request, being notified of the request and approving the request are 2 different things. So I would ask that that verbiage be changed, provided the mayor approves the request.
Yes, Councilman.
My understanding is it would need the mayor to approve the request unless it was something that was voted by a majority of council. In which case, if there are things put in place by council as a legislative action, then they would need to be staffed appropriately per the legislative action.
So the new council, when you need a new council training, or you wanna have, you work like any ad hoc committee, sometimes you need to have a staff with you. So we need the staff, the mayor, like we have our chair, what we call, that's what meant. Like I'm a new council, I want the clerk to give the training. That's. Go ahead.
On this one, I would say if I was ever deputy mayor and someone wanted staff there, I would not want to be the one to say, no, sorry, you can't.
Yeah.
I think they have a right if they want to be there. Yep. Okay, so say, unless I'm reading this wrong. Am I reading it wrong?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
The request by the mayor is for the staff liaison to be there.
Oh, okay.
It's council directing staff without.
Oh, gotcha.
I have a meeting with deputy mayor, I will request staff to be there. That's what it means. That means you need to get the mayor approval to have the staff, or to have, that's what the mayor said, we need to be changed, notified, the mayor approval. The mayor maybe said no. That was the comment. Go ahead.
So I have a question for Councilmember Baldwin regarding your suggestion to split the two. Instead of the word review, would read through be a better choice? Because as I read this, I kind of felt that it was a current council member helping a new council member kind of read through the rules and understand them. I didn't see it as a review as you are doing now.
It's part of the orientation. When you be higher orientation.
It's for the deputy mayor to work with the new council so they understand the rules.
Yeah.
That's what mean. That's why.
That's how I read
think
it, and I think that might change the need to split them into two.
Okay.
And that's why we need to add the mayor. Like my training, I got it, and the attorney, I think assistant attorney. So yes.
The language change is good.
Thank you.
So, let me clarify so I'm making sure I'm making a good suggestion. This section is only when we get new council members, making sure the new council members get the new council rules of procedure, and somebody, in this case, the suggestion is the deputy mayor, does that. And the suggestion is to add and staff liaison if requested, and somebody has told the mayor. So what I'm understanding is if the mayor allocates the resource for that, which she has done historically, but it's still her purview. Do I have consensus of the council to change this to be more of a read-through with the mayor's consensus of the staff resource?
Sure.
Is that
Yep.
fit?
Sure.
And so section 4 here, it's work with the mayor and administration to prepare agendas for the council study sessions. Consensus to add the and mayor. Section 5. Do I have consensus to make the updates to section 5? Section 6? Do I have consensus to add the language to section 6? No changes here. And simple change here for department in front of director. Yes. Yes.
On C3, sorry.
Go ahead.
On C3, do we still have the Emergency Management Compensation Board?
Go ahead, Mayor.
It's only as necessary. We have not convened that committee in several years.
Okay, I just hadn't heard of it in a while.
Other duties of the deputy mayor. Do I have consensus to make the changes to these 3 sections? So I'm only seeing 3 heads. I see all the heads. I have consensus to make the updates to section. Okay.
Yes.
And that's what I was thinking about.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just consider maybe modifying this. So I would strike voluntary and have it say something akin to conduct regular and periodic meetings with individual council members and city attorney as requested by either party. And then to address council member issues, concerns, legislative process, proposals, training, etc. The goal really being for the deputy mayor, they have the ability to work with the city attorney without necessarily needing extra staff liaison. And from a voluntary standpoint, I think it's going to be important to make sure that whomever's serving in that role is holding those regardless of anything else. So I think taking out voluntary ensures that those are happening.
I have a question. So deputy mayor, that's why conduct regular meeting with individual council. We put it voluntarily because it's look like it's up to the council if they decided to meet or not. Like we sometimes, our schedule will not allow even with the mayor, then we send with council. So that's why we done it this way. So you be able, if your schedule will not allow you to cancel the meeting, have a staff, it's either even attorney, it's up to like a staff, if not there, sometimes you can request if we don't want to just say the attorney, we want to open it general staff because you may, that's the request. So we want to have the ability of our schedule or we don't feel conflict of interest. Or, I mean, you don't feel you want to stay with the council, the deputy mayor alone. There is some reason. Some people feel like we may need to have someone with us. That's the reason. Go ahead.
We're not talking about now, we're talking about the future as well. We're gonna get new council members that are gonna come in that may not be full-time employees. So we should take that voluntary out of there and make it conduct a regular periodic meetings. We're not talking about now because everyone here works. In the future, we may have new council members that are not full-time employees and they'd be able to meet with council, with the deputy mayor.
Go ahead, Kate.
It's going to be next time.
Okay. So just a reminder for this section, we're still within the responsibilities of the deputy mayor. So this is meant to tell the deputy mayor you, deputy mayor or interim deputy mayor, need to conduct regular and periodic meetings with individual council members and a city attorney as requested by either party to do these things. And so I think that that gives more support to the fact that if there needs to be a third party present, having someone from legal feels like a good, safe bet in that space. And then taking out the voluntary means that if you have a deputy mayor who, we want that individual to be working with everyone on council. And so this is instructions to that person, not so much instructions to the rest of us. Does that make sense? That's how I read it, and that's why I would strike the voluntary and then just swap it to, and a member of legal staff is requested by either party. So if either the deputy mayor or the council member feels the need, we can get that back up in the room.
I agree.
Okay.
I would take it out.
And line mayor request.
So I'm gonna make a real quick comment. The staff liaison, the suggestion is legal staff, which they have, you all have the right to use the city attorney, but staff liaison again has to be at the mayor's
Request.
acceptance.
Yeah.
Approval, and so,
Change the language to be like
so we're gonna remove this.
red.
And what was the language that you had suggested I put here instead?
I was going to suggest, and city attorney is requested by either party.
Is there consensus for that language?
Yes.
And mayor approval.
Well,
Go ahead.
for the city attorney, that's not necessary.
Okay.
Thank you,
Can it
Mayor.
be the city attorney or designee? Is that,
City attorney or city attorney staff.
why is it not letting me type?
Okay. Well. Go ahead,
I'm
Commissioner.
sorry, so are we saying that every time the deputy mayor meets with one of us, that the city attorney needs to be present or as needed?
As needed.
As
So are we wording it that way?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's not working.
Hint, hint.
Oh, wait, it starts working. It's dying.
Close enough. So just some punctuation errors, or not errors, but updates. And so section 13. The suggestion is for section 13.8 is to submit at least 2 questions instead of just 1, in case your question is similar to another council person's. So we'll keep that in mind when we get to that section. So just some punctuation updates. Section 13.3.
Yes.
Clarifying question. So for section 13.2, we talk about appointing a council member pro tempore to serve during the absence or disability. Would we see the following sections, which speak to filling a vacancy, as being the mechanism for 13.2, or do we see 13.3 only for filling a permanent vacancy? So I just looking to clarify if we have different procedures for having someone in an interim or having someone to finish the term.
Go ahead, ma'am.
If I can just share past experience, typically, well, there was one time when I was on council that we did have a vacancy of a council member for, I think, 3 or 4 months. And the person who filled in for that council member was a former council member, not someone who is brand new that may be there for a month, may be there for 2 months, and not be able to fully function in that role. There was thought that a former council member who was willing to serve could come in and be up to speed quickly. But that was the experience that we had when we had a council member who was out ill for a few months.
So as a clarifying, it is 2 separate actions. 3.13.2 is a separate action than the start of 13.3.
Go ahead.
Also, we don't have pro temp. Well, wouldn't that be deputy mayor in there or not? Just a temporary? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, would be. Check. Go ahead.
And I think to make Councilmember Baldwin's distinction more clear, at the end of 13.1, we could say, may appoint a qualified person to fill a vacancy as provided by RCW 4212.070 and rules 13.3 through whatever the last rule ends up being. Through instead of and.
1321.
We'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that
Yeah.
acceptable?
Mhm.
So back to 13.3. I have consensus to make the edits to 13.3. Okay. 13.4. Spell that right. I have consensus to make the edits 13.4. 13.5. We did talk about this before and we made some edits about the personally identifiable information.
And I also believe that the suggested edit on the other sheet that you showed at the beginning that said 13.8 was about the interview questions, which is actually addressed here in 13.5.
It's already here.
Okay. I have consensus to make the edits to 13.5. Okay. 13.6.
Yes. In 13.6, it speaks to a path that says if we receive more than 10 completed applications, here's what we're going to do. It doesn't know how we'll handle that selection if we don't have 10 or more than 10 applications. So just making sure that we fully go down both paths.
Go ahead, Councilmember.
Can we just change that to up to 10 completed? Oh, if we had less than 10, is that what you're saying?
So the way that I was reading it, if we receive more than 10, the clerk is going to, the council members send back our list of which ones that should contain. Like I said, it's kind of weird, but it doesn't seem to be clear of if there's less than 10, if we need to do any ranking.
Go ahead.
Sean, could you go through the process that we did when we had 15 of them? and one we had to take out because they were from out of state.
Did I do that? Yes.
And, but we reviewed all 15, correct?
Councilmember, may I?
Go ahead, yes.
The ad hoc reviewed
Right.
the full slate, minus the one that was not qualified to be a council member in our jurisdiction. What this is saying is that the full council is going to review all of them and pick the top 10 to do interviews with.
Okay, thank you. I think that would work a lot better.
So the wording you needed to be like, okay.
I would maybe just add a line along somewhere that says, if there's less than 10, all will be,
We use the same process.
Yeah.
Less than 10.
Yeah.
Also.
Yes, it's language, okay.
So do I have consensus with the addition of if less than 10 to follow the same procedures? Okay, I'll just add that here.
Thank you.
Okay. 13.7. I have consensus to add 13.7. I see 4 heads. 13.8.
I want to make sure that you see my head.
Okay. 13.9.
Go ahead.
One question on 13.9, the last sentence, I thought we might want to consider if that is a step that we would want to do. So we're trying to make sure that there's a fair experience for everyone going through the interview. And the last sentence says that anyone who's completed theirs can reserve the remaining portion of the council meeting. So if we had 10 people that we were interviewing and each person gets done, for the final person who comes in, they have 9 extra people in the room staring down their back while they're answering their questions. I thought we might want to keep the other candidates in sequestration until the full meeting is complete, as opposed to letting them rejoin the public portion. I don't know if there's anything legal in that space, one way or another, but trying to create a fair experience, it just felt imbalanced for whoever would be the last person. So I would just strike the last sentence unless somebody wants to keep it or unless there's a legal reason we need to keep it.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Just for legal clarification, since it's an open public meeting, can you keep someone out of that meeting if they want to be in there? No.
On either side of it, to be honest.
Okay.
But again, these are aspirational. So each candidate will make a choice if they want to follow the requested procedure or not.
So
go ahead.
Maybe we can modify it to say candidates will be encouraged to, I don't know, sit out the remainder of the meeting. I don't know what the language would look like on that, but I think it would be fair to maybe request and encourage.
It does say will be asked,
Did it?
so they're not commanded.
In the last sentence?
First.
Oh, okay.
So do I have consensus of the council to change the last sentence, candidates will be asked to remain?
Yes, a question.
I think it's there.
Candidates will be
Candidates will be asked to remain.
For the duration of all candidate interviews, it's in the first sentence.
Yeah.
And upon would be until.
That's City Hall.
It's on that. Oh,
This-
oh,
yeah.
we just copy it to be, okay.
Candidates will be asked. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
She'll see tomorrow after she drink coffee.
So this is what I understand.
It's already in there. In the first sentence. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Mayor, sorry.
It already says in there, all candidates will be asked to remain sequestered at City Hall, which includes not using electronic devices for the duration of all candidate interviews. It's already there.
It says it again. So we don't.
So
That's
we don't need
just duplication.
Strike
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Do I have consensus to add 13.9 as it is presented here?
Yes.
Okay. 13.10. Okay. Do I have consensus to change 13.10?
Yeah.
Thank you. 13.11.
Oh, you need
13.12. 13.13. Okay. 13.14. 13.15. Okay. 13.16.
No.
13.17. 13.18. 13.19. And 13.20.
Yes, Councilmember.
Thank you. So in 13.18 is another date a little broad? I mean, I'm just asking, do we need to specify what that would look like if a majority is not received? We can postpone the election to, for, I don't know what that would be, but just saying another date, is that good enough? And I'm just asking, yeah.
Go ahead.
So in the very first part of this section, at the beginning of 13, it does say that if you have not identified a council member within 90 days, the county will appoint a qualified person. So if it's day 89, the
And we still
council
no
can
consensus.
postpone, but that just means you are granting your authority to the council to provide that determination.
Go ahead, Councilmember.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is called out specifically at 1321 as well. So with a little bit more scroll, we see it at the beginning, as the mayor said, and in the end of the section.
And if we wanted to make it clear, if a majority of council is not received for a candidate, the candidate may postpone elections till another date within the 90-day period.
Yeah, that's a little more cleaner there, yeah, because another day, that could drag out forever. It wouldn't
nice.
work.
Or just mention
Okay.
1301, yeah.
Do I have
Councilman, go ahead,
Oh,
Councilmember.
go ahead, Sean, I'm sorry.
Nope.
Nope, okay. Nope, I have nothing on 1320.
So back to 13.18, sorry, since we
Sorry,
made
my
an
bad.
edit.
I'm jumping way ahead.
Yeah.
Okay,
On 13.18, since we made an edit, do I have consensus of the council to add the additional language? 1320, yes, did not see enough nods. 1321,
Councilmember Tracy Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I believe since we've already established that another date at 1318, I think 1321 can be taken out. It's also stated at the very beginning of the 13.
I have consensus to remove 13.21. Just like that. The next section.
Deleting easy.
The next section that there was edits to is section 16. As a reminder, Council, when we talked about this previously, on your study session special focus areas, we are swapping, and so I've made those edits here, that the specialist focus area will be the first section on and then the general purpose will be second. With that, are there any edits to section 16.1? Oh, let me just, sorry. So the first edits are to section 16.2, so.
Go ahead.
I have a question, because someone brought this to my attention, and I don't know if this is the right place. Is there a place in our study session where the focus committee chairs can give a report on what they've been doing in their committees so everybody knows what all the committees are doing? And I don't know if it used to be like that. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Go ahead, Mayor.
That is part of what you can do during your council reports at the end of a council meeting. It's on local, regional, and state, national committees. So that would be where you would give your report on what's going on in your appointed committee.
Okay.
I thought her question about the special focus area, like where the municipal or finance, then we reported. Okay, which good.
Yeah,
So we
that's
know
good.
what the other two. Thank you. You get the answer. It was the right place to ask. Thank you.
Do I have consensus to make the edits to 16.1?
Yes.
And this is simply swapping the, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I didn't see you, so thank you. I was reading. Go ahead.
Yeah, on the first paragraph, we swap it to put special focus areas first and general business second. In the second paragraph, I think it's still out of order in the first line.
Okay. I'll make sure it's correct throughout.
Okay.
Okay. Consensus to change those items? So just some formatting changes. Do I have consensus to remove the finance ad hoc from the reporting as a special ad hoc?
Will be special, will be, because we're not ad hoc, I think will be like special focus. Before the bureau, we still give the report. That's what I mean. Still there, but will not be called ad hoc. Will be called the finance report or, yeah, a focus area. That's my understanding. Yeah.
I'm sorry, are we adding a portion to the agenda?
And Mayor, correct me, when you have usually in the general meeting, you said, and any ad hoc to report. So we as a finances, we are special focus. So you still somehow said report, and we still give the, go ahead, Mayor.
Or the chair of the finance committee could report after the motion is made and seconded could provide the detail of the portion of the agenda that is from finance review and approval. And then whoever made the motion could report on the rest of it.
Go ahead.
I felt like when we had previously gone through section 3 for the regular council meeting agenda, that we tweaked something in the consent agenda that allowed for it. I think one of the bullets that was under that, we moved it to include the special focus areas, if you remember. Because I feel like we did shift it from being a finance ad hoc into a section in what would have been 3.1M, probably like something in that section. That's what I remember us going through on it.
Yeah.
I'm not looking yet.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
so in 3.1, okay, there it is.
3.1M, we put it there.
Yes.
So that is reiterating what the mayor said, that they can speak after
Correct.
the motion's
Yep.
been made.
That's
Perfect.
the reason someone pointed to us like it's not ad hoc.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go.
Yeah, because we spent 6 months reviewing this, we forget.
Yeah, perfect.
Go ahead.
So I have consensus to remove this section? Perfect.
Thank you, Mayor.
Do I have approval for section 2? Okay. Section 3? I just need one more head.
Yeah, she needs 4 heads.
Just one more head.
Sorry, I was just looking. We
No,
read and
I'm
we
teasing.
I try. I start getting headache from.
Okay. And so this is an addition. Do I have consent to add section E?
Go ahead.
Yeah, on this one, I don't agree with it. This is something that it does 2 things. The one thing in it that I support is I don't mind the idea of having us go round robin to get input from council members and actively do more engagement to seek input from everyone present. The part I don't agree with is any type of limitation on questioning for council members. And that's in part because we're talking about this being within study sessions. Study sessions are expressly where we're meant to have conversation and dialogue and quorum to be able to fully engage with each other. Additionally, we serve as representatives of the community. So if the community is asking us to bring questions forward, we need to be able to bring all the questions. We can't be picking and choosing, well, I'm going to bring, Bob's but not Jane's or Jane's but not Bob's. It puts council members in a very negative position for that. As far as submitting questions to department directors ahead of meetings, sure, where we can, that's great. Realistically, we get our packets on Thursday night and we've got to be ready to go for Monday. So where feasible, yeah, I think we can do that. But I think to try and limit questions by council members in study session is a terrible, terrible direction, and frankly one that would likely be challenged legally. So I don't think it's a good idea, and I don't think trying to do questions after study session make any kind of sense when we're trying to be transparent for the public. It moves it into email, and I think would make a public records request nightmare for our clerk's office, and I don't want to do that to you guys. So I think there are some practices that we could just incorporate, but overall, I think there's too much happening here that's very negative for the work of a governing body. So no, I don't accept that.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
I would turn to Paul. Would this make a legal case if we limited questions?
Just got back, so
Oh.
you're on.
Sorry.
Give him.
16.1E.
Thank you. Okay. So okay. So I've read it. What's the question? Sorry.
So, to restate my points that had been made while you had stepped away, is that within the section, there are certain aspects that I think are reasonable, such as engaging in a round robin to make sure people have a chance to chime in. What I think could be challenged is trying to limit questions of council members within a study session as a venue, because we're here as representatives of the community. If I am representing questions from Bob and Jane and Tom, to limit it to 2 puts a filter into the dialogue that we're here as representatives for the community of what we can bring into council and into these meetings and into these sessions. And so I think it's a bad idea. I think being able to provide questions to directors ahead of time is great, but I think having questions move to email after a public meeting creates transparency issues and a nightmare for the clerk's office. So I don't think it's a good approach.
Okay. But what's the question?
The question Cheryl asked, this is there is any issue that this is legal or not? Because there is one of the comment we do.
The short answer is I don't know. I do think that there is a valid concern that, so first of all, the council is allowed to make their own rules
Yes.
of procedure. And so if limiting the questions to 1, 2, or 3 per council member, whatever one decides, and that's the will of the council, then that's what, those are the rules that you will follow. My prior experience is that they had that rule in place, but it was very loosely applied. It was only enforced if things really got out of hand. I don't know if I don't know what legal challenge someone would bring, and I don't know if it would be valid or not. I've never considered that. I'm sorry, I can't opine on that further.
Thank you. Because the reason for it to have a limit, so everybody will get opportunity to ask. Again, Jean or the 3 people ask, council still has, when I say like, hey, I still have a question, which still be okay. But I think the reason came from council, they wanna we have limits. So if we have few people, like let's say like we have a public worker, they wanna present for hour, we have another one for hour. So if we ask the hour people, we spend 45 minutes, then when we get to next one, will be longer and people get trained. Technically, we usually receive all the information ahead. We should be prepared. If council said, no, I have another question, and with majority people, they can still ask. That's the reason for it. Go ahead.
I think by putting these rules in place, you're trying to limit council engagement, and you create something that could be used to punish council members who show up with more than the allowable questions. I think there's a higher likelihood that it would be used negatively as opposed to used positively, because even as we go through our meetings and things, I'll call it out. I'm the one that mainly has questions or points. But let's note, most of the suggestions or things that I'm calling out wind up resulting in changes that we're making that are material to the work that we're doing. And so my sense of this is that if you wanted to not be here and you want quick meetings, no, I'd like to finish. If we don't have the patience to allow the questions that need to happen in a study session, in public forum, then I don't think we're doing the work that we were elected to be here to do. And so I think this whole premise of trying to limit questions is nonsense.
Thank you, Kate. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I will tell you that when I was at the AWC conference and I took a refresher course on rules and procedures, and this question came up from a different couple councils. And the lady told us that you have to have something in the rules and procedures or questions can go on and on and on. And so I think we have to put something in there because it's part of that.
And I want to say my sentence. It's not like we, the council, want to leave, but the council they may feel we being put under pressure because we start talking about same point over and over. That's, you look to it from different respect. Some they think like we being pressure. We stuck here, we hearing same question being over and over, either we agree or not. That's the rule there. Like we say, hey, people still can ask 5 questions, but it's allowed other people to speak. Because this came when we had some, I think was Jeff Tay came here. He went round robin, he allowed people to talk. So we heard people, they have not spoken. So maybe having this rule will allow the quieter people to speak. That's to balance it. Go ahead.
So just as a suggestion to maybe kind of limit the controversy, I think if you took out so one thing to keep in mind is that the council controls the discussion at all times. So at any time someone can call for the question. If another person agrees that they're done discussing it, they can then, the council as a whole agrees to end discussion and move to the vote. So if you were to keep it as aspirational that it goes around 3 times and just left it there, then if the council so wishes, another question can be asked if there's more discussion to be had, or the council can end discussion and move to the vote itself.
Go ahead.
I just would like to say that even before I became deputy mayor, the other deputy mayor has given everybody a chance to ask questions. No one asked questions except Ms. Baldwin. I've been hearing from some of our directors that they would like to hear more of our council members to ask more questions. But we've given you the chance. I keep asking, since I've been here, I've been asking more than 3 times to be able to ask questions. No one has any questions, but I hear from some of our directors that they would like us to ask questions. So I'm not sure why nobody wants to ask questions, but limiting a person to ask the question, I don't think that's right.
So just to clarify, this is only at study sessions.
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
we
I
cannot
kind of
vote.
realized that after I spoke, so sorry about that.
We can't vote.
But the same rule applies. The council can decide when they're done discussing an issue and done receiving information.
Yes, Kate.
My question is, because there are multiple things happening in this section, and there's a concern about spending too much time on an item, and even tonight, I think we were given a recommendation of let's just try and get through it, which I frankly agree with. But I do have concerns on this because I think it can be used in a negative fashion to limit discussion around issues that may come up in the future, where I want us to be able to have healthy dialogue. I think it can be used to shut people down. I think it can be used in any number of negative ways. I don't think we need it. I don't think it's improving council operations to have it. I think we have mechanisms to say, let's bring this back, or let's have more discussion another time, or as we've had with these meetings, hey, we're all getting tired, let's wrap it up and continue another day. I think we have all of those tools available to us. I don't think that this adds anything of value. I think that it introduces potential challenges of, does that mean as chair, you're gonna have to stop and count, 1, 2, 3, to make sure you're not missing the mechanics of it? If somebody needs to rephrase a question, does that count as one of their questions? I think there's just a lot of nuance that could be introduced here that's unnecessary, potentially negative, and too much overhead. I don't support it.
Okay. Do I have consensus to move this item forward?
Go ahead.
I can see both sides of it. I think they're both valid points. But I think Kate have a, I guess, stronger suggestion here. Because I would have some concerns too, just in particular about these questions that are going to directors and emails, and you know, I just think that's kind of a slippery slope there. And I also could see where we do have time, and then limiting the amount of questions that a person can ask if we're really trying to vet something out and get more detail, more information, giving everybody a chance to speak. And yeah, there's sometimes in some meetings, people ask more questions than others. But then I can also see where, and where it could be weaponized and used. And so if we're trying to make sure that everyone has a voice, I would just say that it's probably not needed, and folks can just really start governing their own behaviors and monitoring the fact that, yeah, I maybe want to ask 5 more questions, but I've already asked 10. I probably ought to just, bow out for the sake of giving some space in the room to other people. So I don't necessarily think we need to have it.
So I'm going to ask this a different way so I can get a consensus. Is there consensus to remove this suggested edit? Okay, I have 4. Section 16, there is, sorry. (16.2)B is where we have. So here's the section, oh my goodness, sorry, section 16.2B is, here it is presented. This is the council member's suggested edit. Okay, I'm going to go back to the suggested edit. Is there a consensus to make the edit or discussion?
Go ahead, Clinton.
That was, I don't know if someone made a similar comment, but when I read it, I was just like, why do we need to change it? We could just, my suggestion, we could just leave it the way it was. Sure.
Go ahead.
I think the reason why for the change was it becomes extremely cliquey, and there's not enough, it's not equal. It's not equitable to all council members. It's usually the same people that get picked over and over and over again for the same ad hoc committees, if not more. I feel like this gives everybody an opportunity.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't see the need for the change. I think it should either stay with the deputy mayor, or if we're really concerned about how we get members on the ad hoc committees, I would either keep it as is, or I would move it to just having council vote on the members anytime we need an ad hoc committee. And then people can say, hey, I'm interested, or I'm not interested, or I am, or I'm not, and we can hear it and decide. If we're concerned about clicks or we're concerned about that type of thing, I would say having us just do a majority vote like we are for our other activities is an option, or just leave it with the deputy mayor appointing. If we ever feel like we don't trust that person to choose wisely, hey, guess what? We can change that deputy mayor.
So I hear you. The only one thing, I think even to keep it to everybody vote, so everybody will be, their voice being heard, then we know like there is ad hoc will be coming and everyone can speak for it. Either we move it to all, which I agree, or we were even thinking like, okay, maybe we can, because we look to the historical to the whole time mayor Then after that became deputy mayor. That's why we decided to have deputy mayor will select someone or be part of it, or the two and the mayor and council will select one. We're fine, we keep it to the council to select the ad hoc. Then we know there is ad hoc coming, and people can say, hey, you've been forgetting me, like, yes, then, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because I think we have different people with different interests. We have different people with different availabilities depending on their jobs or their time of year. So if we wind up having folks that want to, are suited for, and have availability, I don't think we should prohibit. But at the same time, I would like to hear if people are like, yeah, sign me up or don't sign me up, because there are certain things that maybe they want or they don't want, you know? So yeah, I'm curious what y'all think.
Hold on. Do you have something, Paul? Yes.
Yeah, I would like to just remind everyone that previously you left the deputy mayor as an ex officio member of every ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to discourage acceptance of the change, but it wouldn't, yeah.
So the two will be by the majority vote.
Yeah.
So deputy mayor would be like, let's say deputy mayor one, then the other
two.
Yeah, the other two will come from the six. That's what Kate was saying. Good. Cheryl, I saw you raise your hand
I know,
before.
now I'm trying to remember what I was gonna say. I don't remember now.
Okay.
So let me clarify. The suggestion on the floor is to amend this to be deputy mayor is one of the three members as the ex officio, and then the remaining two members are voted on by
The majority.
majority of the council.
Yes.
Go
ahead.
That's what I was gonna ask. So if we did that way, what if everybody wanted to be on it? And then how do you?
By vote.
I know,
Like,
but they'd all vote for themselves, so
sorry, what?
you might not have a, what if, okay, you know what I'm, okay, say everybody wanted, say it was gonna be a fun ad hoc committee, everybody wanted to be on it, right? So you're all voting for yourself, right?
We
So
have the
if we
method-
need two people, you need two votes.
Everybody gets 2 votes.
Everybody get 2 votes.
Oh, okay.
And the deputy mayor is already on the ad hoc committee, and so theoretically.
Will be one of the people who vote, so we still, the person get.
That time of night.
I mean, it is 8 o'clock.
So
We almost done. Go ahead.
And in the past, I believe that's how we had it, the deputy mayor, and then at one time, there was 3 of us that voted, so we had to there was 2 of us that tied, and then we had to vote it again, and then it broke the vote.
Thank you. So we agree on it. It's night.
So I will make the edits. I'm not gonna do it in
Thank
real
you.
time.
You can watch the video.
I'm not gonna watch that video.
I don't have time to watch the video.
it's not working.
Don needs
Messing
break.
with you, Sean.
This computer is not playing nice with me.
The mouse.
Okay. So, item C. Do I have consensus to add item C and remove that part?
Do you need more head?
I do,
Okay.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Item D.
Yes, Kate.
Sorry, I think there's, the last sentence of D before the strikeout is that the ad hoc committee shall not receive public testimony or allow audience participation in connection. If the committee is scheduling, if they're on the agenda to have a moment for the committee to be working in study session, could there not be testimony or engagement at that point in the meeting?
It's my understanding, the hearing of, it's usually in the special meeting or the meeting, not in the study session, so. Go ahead.
So if the ad hoc committee was on the agenda as part of old business or ongoing business for a regular council meeting, could we not have, feedback within that council meeting during that session for the ad hoc committee that's driving it?
Anyone?
Can I answer that?
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So that wouldn't be the ad hoc committee conducting that, it can be an item on the regular agenda for the full council but it's not for the ad hoc committee. Where that comes in is, there has been questions previously for previous ad hocs that the three members wanted to get public input to bring back to the full council, and they cannot do that.
Okay.
So that it has to be, the three members cannot receive public testimony or hold an open public meeting, because it's not a quorum of the full council.
Yes, Kate.
So just to make sure I understand, when they go off and have their meetings at like a Tuesday afternoon or whatever, no testimony then. If they're on a regular meeting agenda and they want to have that, it can be part of a normal meeting agenda for like a council meeting.
So to clarify, the deputy mayor would work with the mayor to have a public hearing or something like that put onto the agenda. It wouldn't be the ad hoc's
Right.
public testimony period. It would be the full council's public testimony period
Yes.
on a given subject.
Yes.
So it's not here. So we can move on?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
clarification.
Thank you for,
With that clarification, do we have consensus to move on?
it's so not.
Item E? Mayor? For the staff liaison.
Okay.
Does that need to be removed?
It's,
We already have it up.
no, it's depending on the subject. Let's say you want to work with subject related to finance, HR, you still need liaison experts, so you need the mayor approval.
I understand that,
Okay.
but the way this is worded
Oh, yeah, like, yeah.
is that you're informing the mayor that you're
Oh, yeah, this
taking
word.
staff resources, and that's,
Oh, we agree in this, please. And mayor approval, yes.
should it then be provided the mayor approves of the request? Or how? I can,
At mayor's discretion.
No, the mayor responsible and staff, so they need mayor approval,
Yeah.
which, yeah, so by mayor approval.
we'll word it, but do I have consensus to add the words that mayor approval?
Yes. Yes, Clinton.
Thank you. I think we said in there, I think that should just be standard language
Anywhere you
anywhere
find it
throughout the
corrected.
document
Great.
where there's any request for staff to
Yeah.
participate in anything.
Make sure to be correct in anywhere we miss it.
Perfect. So, I think there was a section here, sorry, 16.3. So here is the suggested edit for 16.3A. So I believe that has been taken care of by the
Yeah.
previous.
Yes, we already did. Yes.
I have a question on that. So is that just for local committees and boards?
That's the intergovernmental.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, okay.
I think we need to strike the last line of 16.3A based off our last decision.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Someone's still awake. Good.
Do I have approval for 16.3A as amended?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
At the beginning of 16.3, it says the mayor shall appoint council representatives. Is that what we just talked about, that we can remove that
Yeah.
everywhere? Is that what Clinton Taylor was speaking of?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Yes.
I think,
Staff liaisons.
Oh, okay.
yeah, I think the distinction is that in 16.3, it's about intergovernmental councils, boards and committees, not so much the ad hoc, which is previously defined.
Okay, so 16.3A, I have consensus.
You can get my.
16.3B.
Yes, Kate.
I would strike the last line. I think it's inherent that the things we've talked about in our leadership retreats are that we're going to be working to prioritize appointments. I do think if we have individual council members who get really excited about a topic, that we shouldn't hold them back from joining additional things if it's on their time. So I feel like the last line is not relevant or necessary.
We on B?
Yes.
So we want these community.
I would keep it all, but just strike the last line.
Her suggested edit is to remove this line here.
Oh, okay.
Do I have consensus to move 16.3B minus this line? Well, that's unfortunate.
Really?
16.3C. Okay, that's removal of this B and this C and this D and this E. I'm sorry. Yes?
Uh-huh.
You have enough heads? Perfect. Okay, so let me check. Section 17, these are the two for 17.5 that have been suggested when we get to that section. Okay, and so 17.5. Oh, 17.4, sorry. Do I have consensus to add this section to 17.4A? Yes. Okay. $17.5. The suggestion is to not, again, the suggestion from council is to amend it to be personal business, or to remove this, it should be taken out. It puts a divide. So 17.5. Are there any comments on 17.5?
Oh. Yes. I made it back.
Yes, Sarah.
So I still don't like this one, and I've heard from a lot of staff they don't like it. So I think, again, what happens before a council meeting and after a council meeting, we should be growing enough to know what we're saying and what we're not saying. I understand this got brought up, but it puts a limit on building relationships with staff. And sometimes that's the only time you have. So if they want to ask you what you did last weekend or whatever, I mean, I don't see anybody hanging around and having long conversations.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Go
All right,
ahead.
then okay. I think essentially, Cheryl, what this is to do is personal business. It doesn't mean what did you do for the weekend or anything like that. It's just in the scope of, yeah, you can have those personal conversations. I think what this means is business. It just, the optics are bad.
But I've heard other people have those
Cheryl.
personal business, oh, sorry.
Yes. Go ahead, next.
So the request was made from staff members who want to be able to focus on, if they're doing a presentation during the council meeting, they want to be able to focus on what they have in front of them, and they don't want to be held up after the meeting. And for a majority of staff members, council should only be dealing directly with directors, not other staff members. But this also says in council chambers. That was one of the additions that was made. But this was requested by some staff members that they have the ability to focus on what is at hand for them that evening and not be kept after the council meeting. So that's why this was added.
Go ahead.
Will this be for every single council member? Because I have seen council members stay behind after a meeting with directors. So I'm just saying, as soon as the council is over, our meeting's over, we're all to leave the building, correct? Is that what this is stating? Can my question be answered?
No, because your question, if this is for everybody, after we approve it, so with the staff regarding their own personal business. So it will be for everybody, not to talk about their own business to the staff. Go ahead.
I think one of the challenges that I see in the introduction of this is that as council members, I think we do want to be respectful to staff and to directors and their time. And when we have long meetings, nobody wants to stay longer than we have to. But at the same time, in these sort of, it reminds me of when we were all in high school, you had 5-minute passing, right? It's in those windows of time where sometimes you can say, hey, I need to schedule a meeting with you, what day works? Oh, and then you might get that feedback immediately to help you engage with them in better channels. So I get from an optics perspective.
Question, Kate, sorry. Are you meaning schedule meeting with them as a council or schedule meeting for your personal use? Because this is saying, as I read it, I can go like, I need to schedule a meeting tomorrow or something as a council. I did not limit it, but said, I want to schedule a meeting with you to talk about my business. I think that's what limited. It did not say we cannot schedule. Yeah, that's how I interpret. But each brain read it different. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I see where you're going on this one. I think what it comes down to, and the difference between this is personal business, meaning, for instance, you have an outside business outside of your council duties. If we're walking out with a director, there's a good chance that we're talking about city business. We're talking about something in our special focus area, something that has come or is going to be brought to council. If they are in council chambers, we can have that discussion because that's city business. This is the difference between personal and city.
Yes.
Again, how do we know what council is talking to that director? Because that's between you and that director. I'm not saying, I'm saying the council member and the director discussing something after a meeting. We don't know if it's business or personal. So we need to clarify that as well.
Because my understanding, it came from a staff. That means staff went to talk about it. So after that, if we do it, they will say, oh, this is personal. That's how I think. Go ahead, Clinton. We don't know, but like.
I think that, I could be wrong. I think there's a clear distinction between when you're talking about personal stuff you're talking about council stuff, city stuff. And so there's been an axe by the staff to not have to engage in conversations with the council prior or after about their own personal business. And so whether we agree to leave that in or not, I think we just need to, I think we're reaching in different place. It says their own personal business and shall not discuss personal business with staff before or after council. So I think the personal business piece is what it's saying here. And if people are doing that, then you probably should be mindful of, what you're discussing with the staff anyway. Why would it be appropriate to be discussing some of your personal business with staff?
What do you do?
Go ahead.
What are you defining as personal business?
I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying that that's what the question on the table is, so.
The mayor, okay, go.
Anything that's not council director business. So if you have, let's say you have a nuisance house right next door to you. That isn't something that you would be talking to the staff about based on this item. You would make an appointment and come in and talk to them. It's about not blindsiding staff or directors and letting them focus on the business at hand. So it's not asking about, hey, can I do such and such? What do I need to do to get a permit? It's being respectful of the staff who are here on a council evening, either a study session or a council meeting, and allowing them to do that job and not be caught off guard for other items outside of the council purview.
So I think a clarification for me personally would be my office does passports. I've been asked, I don't think anybody in this room, but previous councils, questions about passports when I'm trying to set up chambers. And it is distracting. I will be 100% honest. It is, trying to, and then when I make a mistake, it's very public. And so catch me in the hallway, great. Give me a call, send me an email. I think that's the difference is, or if I'm, and according to this, not in this room. You can ask me that question anywhere else, just not in this room, if that helps clarify what the intent of this is. Councilmember Remy.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, my back is really hurting me. Can I ask a question to the mayor? On your training, do we have to have this in our policy and procedures? Because I feel we're adults and we should know better. And their training, is there anything in there to let the new council members that they should not do this? It should be, they should not take the directors or staff's time, just in a policy training to, instead of putting it in our rules and procedures, because I've always known better. I was told right off the bat that we talk to our directors. I've always talked to them during our focus study group if I had concerns or anything like that. Because we're wasting, I just don't see why it should be in our policy book when we are adults and we should know better. And it's already been brought to us here. We already have been told that this is something that directors don't appreciate, and we're taking.
No, she didn't say directors, she just said staff.
Staff. I apologize. Staff. Because we've already been told that we can't go to staff unless we go through the directors. So
Staff until you come through the mayor.
The mayor and the directors.
Kate raised her hand first, so go Kate, then you.
Councilmember Trout Manuel brought up the question of do we already cover this? And I think it is covered in AWC training within their materials for how to interact with staff as a council member. So I don't know if we necessarily need it here. I think the point is valid. I think the optics are valid. I think by saying when we're discussing city business, so if we're on the dais or at these tables, we need to stay on topic. And if we're in this room, we need to stay on it. And with the in this, in council chambers clause, I think is helpful because if I'm walking out to the car and somebody wants to grab me or grab me in the hallway, it's bi-directional, right? It's not just us to them, but them to us. And so I think I don't know, this one has a lot of nuance to it. I don't feel like we necessarily have to have it, but I can
Go
see.
ahead, Clinton. Kate, you finished? Clinton.
I'm good.
For one reminder, because you mentioned it need to be, you just remind me that do the new council know it? I feel like even when you go AWC, you forget, usually this is our guidance for new council. That you, the one who mentioned that mean, well, maybe it would be good to have it for future. So because for future, not for that, anyway.
Okay. Yes.
That's Clinton?
Argue.
Oh, Mayor? Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Thank you.
I mean, there are numerous items in here that one would like to think are common sense and common knowledge, but unless you have them in here, they're not part of your council rules of procedure.
Do we have consensus? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
And maybe if it's a wording thing, instead of shall not, council members are asked to, or something, I don't know. I mean, I'm okay with it either way. I mean, I'm not, it's not one of those hills I wanna run up.
The mayor said, but staff are not.
Hmm?
Go ahead, Mayor.
I said, I appreciate what you're saying, but there are staff members who are not okay with having personal business or business outside of council parameters discussed, especially in council chambers when they're either preparing for the meeting or the meeting is over and they want to leave.
Then I'm okay with it being in there then. I'm okay with it.
Do I have consensus to add this section to the council rules of procedure? I'm only seeing two heads, so.
No, I have three, so 3 and 3 will not go.
So it does not go. Removing 17.5.
Yes.
Do I have consensus to remove 17.5? A? All of, it's really all of 17.5.
Yeah, because it's in the policy, right?
Because we've added the other section. Okay. Perfect. Just make sure that I. Should we take it out? Okay, perfect. Council relations. Those are just some grammatical changes. Grammatical changes. 18.4.
Yes.
I was gonna actually jump to 18.3. Sorry, we kind of flew through that one. I was just gonna suggest we strike with consent of the deputy mayor, because in that section, it's talking about as council members, we have our individual travel budgets, and so if somebody needs extra budget and another council member is willing to say, yeah, use mine up or whatever reason, I don't know is that we necessarily need the deputy mayor, whoever's in that role in the future, being a stamp of authority on that. I think if we can work amongst ourselves, that should be fine. I don't know what you guys think.
It's good for the deputy mayor to know that's That's
Maybe,
it. Yeah,
uh,
but either way, it's
we
like,
could inform the deputy mayor.
yeah, same consent, yeah.
So Mayor, since your office is the one that allocates and tracks those funds, would there need to be some type of mechanism
Yes.
involved in there to get that information to your staff
There
to?
needs to,
Go ahead, Mayor.
there needs to be a formal notification of any transfer of funds between councilmember travel budgets.
Could that be requested by whoever is providing their excess?
Okay, West Bank, go ahead.
I have, since I've been doing most of the travels because I'm on national boards and stuff, I have always had the permission to ask if I ran out at the end of the year of some funds, been able to go to another council member and ask if I could use some of their money since they have not used it. And it's always been consent. So I don't know if it's, and that came from the mayor many years ago, that if I could get another council member to share their funds. And I asked the council members, and it was always approved with the consent of both. But it was never the deputy mayor.
So
It
your
was-
current rules
This is the
state,
current
your
rules.
current rules
Right.
state
Right.
that if you and I are both council members and I need additional funds,
Mhm.
I ask you, you say yes, and then I have to go to the deputy mayor, and the deputy mayor also has to concur. And so the suggestion was to remove the deputy mayor's concurrence. And my request, if either, no matter what we do, is to add a section in there of notifying the appropriate staff.
The notified staff, it's okay, but I think we still keep the deputy mayor because as a new council, you don't know. I may some council ask me where is the deputy mayor. He know that I have a training I want to go, so he will because we need to put it for the new council. They will go ask deputy mayor. He could either say, yeah, you can transfer money, or no, you still need money to go there. Or so I feel like deputy mayor should be notified. Or I'm a new, I don't know, go to deputy mayor saying I need to travel, then he will communicate with the other council. Go ahead.
My thoughts on this, and it's one thing that when we were elected to be in this position is to be fiscally responsible. And if we are dipping into other people's allocations and travel budgets, that is not doing us, it looks bad. The optics are bad. It's concerning. I believe, though, the consent of the deputy mayor still needs to be in there. They need to be aware of this. I just truly think that there needs to be that in place.
Yes.
It's concerning.
In my position, never had to ask the deputy mayor. The deputy mayor always knew about it. I never went to my deputy mayor and asked him. He knew because I needed to travel to NLC. Then when I became the president of the HELO, that is when I had to do 2 extra trips because we fly in to Washington, D.C. for a president's meeting. So that drew more of my funds to be able to go. So that's when I asked to another council member to use some of their funds. I'm representing the city of Auburn. It's not doing it just to go traveling. It's representing our city.
Yes, Clinton.
So do we want to leave this in here or not? Do we all agree or don't we disagree? Should this, it's one thing to say that I asked council member if I can use some of their funds, and I think the deputy mayor knew, or it might have known.
Yeah.
But in order to follow, so everything's just above water, above ground, however you want to say it, right? the deputy mayor should be informed of that.
Yeah.
And I don't see, I could be wrong, but I don't see the deputy mayor saying, no, you can't have any of their funds. I just think just from a, I guess, protocol or chain of command or whatever, however you want to say that, I think the deputy mayor should be aware of that and that it should be brought to their attention that, hey, I spoke with, you know, council member Taylor and I need $500 and she was like, yep, sure. Yeah, fine, and I just, I don't see the problem with just leaving this here. I don't
Yes,
see the
Kate.
problem with it, just-
Yeah, I think the reason I don't see it as suspicious or weird is that these are funds that have been allocated for council travel. All it does is allow it to be more fluid from one council member to another. I'm cool with keeping the deputy mayor informed, but I see it more as being informing the deputy mayor as opposed to putting it in a position of they could say no. You know, if you had someone who is antagonistic towards you, I think that taking consent out of it and making it informational is better for all of us as functional adults.
Correct.
And the funds are for travel for council regardless of whether it's council member A or B or C or whomever. As long as we're doing the work of city business and not just out for kicks, I think we're good.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for saying that. I did not want to insert that language that you use, but thank you for putting it in there because there are some times that you may come across with somebody that doesn't like you and would say no. So thank you for saying that.
Yes, we agree on it, so
We
yes.
do agree on it, but I kind of want to go one step a little further, just because I would do this with my own board. I would say that you need to give it to the deputy mayor in writing. So if so whoever gave you that money later on got mad at you because you didn't vote some way or something, and they say, I didn't give him permission. So I think both of you should sign it, give it to the deputy mayor, and just have record of it.
And yeah, and the
And that's
staff.
the accountability.
Yeah.
So do I have consensus to change this in such a way that says that the two council members will inform the deputy mayor and then notify the mayor's staff of in writing of the agreed upon change?
Correct. Okay. Did you count heads or do you need more?
Everybody nodded at me. So 18.4?
I like writing a written report because let's say in 10 years we get a new council and we have same staff and they want to go to this conference, then they have something would share it with it. So yeah.
So the only question there was what kind of written reports need to be submitted?
Yes.
We already have a form right now that each one of us that is on Sound City Association, you go on there, your name is on there, you fill out that form, you turn in an agenda to Melissa, and then she sends out the report that you have gone to all the council members. I've already done 2 of them, so they should have been sent out, and I've given them to Melissa my agenda. But it's on city council. I will have to bring it and show it to you because there is a form that each one of us that are in some committee, and you just turn in your agenda and write out, they ask you questions, and then they submit it to each one of you council members.
But we don't have it for the conference in the NLC or AWC. I didn't go, so I didn't know. I'm one of the people. I would like if someone have written report. Yeah, maybe we don't have it for conference. Go ahead, Mayor.
So prior to COVID and the $50 or now I believe $55 per meeting for appointed positions that are appointed by the mayor, there was a requirement that a report be attached to the request for payment of up to 4 meetings per month. That had to be attached to that. But there are documents available already, online documents that can be used by council when you attend an AWC training, an NLC training, or some other training or meeting that you are representing the city for. That should be filled out, but that hasn't really been done since, because for a while there were no meetings outside of the city. But there are forms available for you if you choose to go in that direction that have already been created.
Yes. Taylor.
Just for clarification, so with those forms that are there, are you, I guess I should say, are we expecting each council member, accountability-wise, to provide the report and not just attach an agenda, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, do I have consensus for 18.4? Close enough.
We done?
We're almost there.
Almost there. Okay.
Okay, so section 19, we're done with the proposed edits from the ad hoc. We are on to this section here. Suggested edits, sorry, let me just make sure this is.
Yeah, it was,
Go ahead.
yeah, so section 19 was coming with some of the work that we had out of the Ready Coalition. And so was really looking to get that incorporated into our rules and procedures document. So whether it's 19 or a different number, can be whatever it needs to be from a numbering standpoint. But the goal was to add a section to have the short version of the Ready Coalition vision statement, which you'll see down below. So actually, sorry, up a little bit. Which would read, 19.1, Ready Commitment. The City of Auburn acknowledges our role as city leaders to champion a community that fosters a racially equitable, diverse, and inclusive culture. With this duty, we invest in trust and solidarity building, unite for collaboration, emphasize intersectionality, starting with race, acknowledge what we don't know, and take action to learn anew, have courage in the face of resistance, and equitably use staff and community input to repair past harm and direct future ready work, and hold ourselves responsible for and accountable to investing in and modeling a ready culture. So with that shortened vision statement, looking to have that be something that as leaders within our city, that as we're asking staff to do this, we do it as well. So that would be a first section.
While I appreciate the work, I think it's a little bit premature because the ready commitment and the documents have not been brought forward or finalized yet. So it just is a little bit premature to have it in here before that there is an official document in place. I think it would be a great addition at a later date when we have finalized the ready work plan, but right now it's still a work in progress.
Holding the thought to next year. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we can bring it up at any time. The short version that we see here is the one that had been accepted within the coalition meetings. So I know the work plan is going to be a different formalized document altogether. But yeah, there was this section, and just to see what else had been, if you would go to the next. We also had a section to see about incorporating an equity lens framework. And so this would really just be incorporating a sample set of questions that we can use, that we may choose to ask at meetings to ensure legislative actions are considerate of potential future impacts. So this question set is really more in that space of giving a framework for new council members who'd be coming in the future, the types of questions that they could ask to be in that mindset. So those questions are, who or what groups does this resolution or ordinance impact? Are all groups affected in the same way? Who has been included in the decision-making process? Have any groups been left out? Have we allowed enough time for input? Can we identify any potential benefit and or harm from this decision in the near term or in the extended future of 10 or 20 or more years? What actions could mitigate potential harm or potential risks? Are there any historically relevant factors affecting this issue or decision today? And are there any comparable programs in our city or in other cities that we can learn from? So with this section, it would be if we wanted to incorporate this and not the other, or both, or one or the other. This again would be a starting point just to put some of those questions out there, very much in the same way that we have with our AWC handbook that we use, which provides a number of similar questions but for different types of activities. So having sample questions that we can kind of look back to or have as point of reference was the goal with this section. And again, with anything we add into rules and procedures, we can always modify it as we go.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Again, I think this is good work, just a little too soon for it to be included because the equity lens framework has not been broadly provided to staff to be able to effectively answer some of these questions. The toolkit and framework are going to take a while to be disseminated amongst all of staff. I think the Ready Coalition did great work. It's just, I would say it's not ready, to use the term, it's not ready for prime time yet to be included in council rules of procedure because it has not been finalized and formalized within the city yet.
Comment, Kate.
Yeah.
If they haven't finalized, they may when finalize, they have it like policy, then in future, we just call it in our procedure. That's why we can hold on this next year. When they finalize it.
Or
and we'll
anytime it's finalized.
Yeah, go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, I think we can hold on it at any point. I know that as a member of the coalition, we were asked to be leaders in this space and to set the tone for the rest of the city, to make sure that they know that as a council and as a governing body that we are we're supportive and that we're behind it. And so I think, well, yes, there is more to come with finalizing the plan and getting it distributed. With these questions, these are questions that council would be asking or consider asking. And it's not to say that we have to or that we'd ask them every time, but again, it's to put us in a space of thinking and a mindset to say, you know, as leaders, are we having these considerations when we're evaluating budget, when we're evaluating comprehensive plan? And so, yeah, we can wait, but I think our community would be served better if we are asking these questions sooner than later. And again, we always have the ability to modify it, so I don't see harm in introducing it now, is my sense.
Thank you. You introduce it would be me because I feel this is like I'm teaching class. Maybe it would be you bring it in future and study session as a presentation and you share it with us and we will have copy, but we don't add it now till we'll be done. That's how I feel. Because I did the video, I watched it, so let's go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, our Chief Equity Officer or Director of Equity Engagement and Outreach will be bringing a finalized version forward to council when it is ready. But again, it is not ready yet, and having the formalized plan would be a better opportunity to provide something in the council rules of procedure as opposed to putting this in when everything is still in draft form. Again, I think it has a place in there. I just think it should wait until the finalized ready plan has been adopted.
Yes.
How close are we to having that draft completed?
I believe it's,
Go ahead.
We can either check with Sean to see if it's made the forward-looking agenda, but I think in my last update that I had. 1 second.
I look to Clinton, I see his head. Clinton.
I don't think it's ready.
I don't have a date for that just yet. So, again, I think the question is, from my standpoint, is there harm in incorporating a community commitment section and including either of these two sections?
Yes, Cheryl.
Kate, I know how much work you've put into this. And because you know what's going on in and most of us don't, I would never think about asking some of those questions right now. I don't know enough information. I kind of agree. I think it's too early. We haven't gotten really anything on it. So I think it'd be more confusing right now.
Yes.
Could we just put the first paragraph on there? Because we know we can do an amendment when it's completed. At least it's in our procedures that section 19 is coming. So that way we know that you're still working on it.
Yes, Kate.
If it was a start with, ready commitment, and then the city council acknowledges our role as city leaders to champion a community that fosters a racially equitable, diverse, and inclusive culture, and just kept it with the first sentence, I think that's a start.
I would agree with that, because we can amend this and bring it back when you do have to, but at least for us to acknowledge that you guys have put in a lot of work into this, and just to be able to acknowledge it in our book would be great.
Yes, Tracy.
Not that I'm trying to go against the grain, but I think honestly, if we were gonna put anything in there, I think 19.2, the framework is much, I like that much better.
Can you open that?
So just really quick, for what she has for 19.1, let's stop there and.
Oh, no, I know, but what I'm saying is I'd rather see 19.2 instead of 19.1. Does that make sense? Like, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I can ask this,
sorry,
3 different ways. I can ask if we have consensus for 19.1, and if the answer is no, I'll ask if we have consensus for 19.2, and if the answer is no, then nothing will go in. You could say yes to both, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
I think being overly specific with any of these right now could be a conflict with what the final plan is. If there is section 19.1 that solely has that sentence, the Auburn City Council acknowledges our role as city leaders to champion a community that fosters a racially equitable, diverse, and inclusive culture, and don't even put ready in there, but just a racially equitable, diverse, and inclusive culture. That is broad enough that it makes a statement that council is invested in this without being so prescriptive that you don't know if it's going to be what the ready plan comes out with.
Yes.
I would agree with that. I think being any descriptive about anything right now, why it's still a body of work that's being developed, but that still speaks to the fact that the council is committed to this, and so I would agree with the mayor that anything descriptive, we should take that out. And then at a later date, if you're saying a year from now, we can come back and edit, or whenever that, if the council so wishes, we could expound a little bit more on that. So I would be okay taking anything that references the ready out.
So I am hearing consensus. Oh, sorry.
we
No,
have.
I was just gonna say, the mayor's correct, because we brought this back to council in 2019. I can't remember, it was before COVID. And then during COVID, we had the Ready program start.
No.
Yeah, because we were on Zoom when we had the gentleman bring it to us.
That's not the ready word.
That was something different.
Well, it was right,
Start getting
you're
the-
right, it was,
Thank you.
okay.
Yes, Kate.
Yeah, we've gone through a few different iterations, and I think as a governing body, we've been working with the mayor to make as many advances as we can in this path along the way, bringing in different consultants over time, doing different programming, and the Ready Coalition has been the latest iteration of that. So if the other members are comfortable having that first line is as a starting point, and we want to take the ready portion out, but keep the full statement. I think I'll take whatever starting point we can get, so.
So I am seeing consensus to remove the part I've highlighted here
And remove the ready commitment, just start the upper, yes.
and the ready here
And then,
And
oh, I'm
down
sorry.
and the ready here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commitment, yeah.
And if you scroll back up just a little bit, we would have to, in that section as well.
That was just comments.
No,
That's
it's
just
coming.
comments.
Okay, got it.
Clinton, it's night, we're
Okay.
good, we're
All right.
doing good.
Let's roll, let's roll.
So, and this is also gone. So the next piece was the equity lens framework. Do I have consensus to add this, to remove it, to modify it? So let's start with add it as it sits. Only seeing one head nod.
Yes.
I thought we were going to bring that back when you have it completed, and we'll do a modification and add it in later. Is that not what we have been
So-
talking about?
What the information, the suggestion from Councilmember Taylor was to remove the questions but leave the paragraph.
You can keep the first statement. Any comment? Yes, Kate.
What I had heard from, what I thought I
Okay.
heard you say was that you preferred section 19.2 to 19.1. For 19.1, there is general consensus to keep the first line, but to remove the sub-statements. For 19.2, I think you had a preference for this one. I see leaving it in as reasonable because it's only a sample set of questions that we may or may not choose to ask that are considered of potential future impacts within the city. So I don't see harm in leaving it in, but I leave that to my co-council members to, evaluate the questions as samples. Have any groups been left out of a decision-making process? I think that's a pretty reasonable type of question that any of us could be asking as early as our next study session. But again, we have been at this, so I leave it to the will of the group.
I thought we agreed to keep the top part and we keep this one for future.
This is a
That's
different
what
section.
my understanding, and Clinton can go and we can go. That's what I thought. We agreed to keep only the top part.
So we separated them.
Yeah, we did
Okay.
separate them.
And this is, we bring it in future.
I would bring it now, is my proposal.
Okay. Do I have consensus to add this as it sits to the council rules of procedure? I got-
guess 2, yes.
I got
I mean,
three
I'm
heads
okay with
nodding, I
either.
got
I'm okay
one
with
no,
either
and
way. I mean,
so
if it-
Councilmember Rakes,
Oh, I'm
it's
sorry.
really you. So I got 2 heads no's, I got 3 heads yes. So I
I'm
need a
gonna
head.
go with the mayor. If the equity lens framework isn't even done yet, I think we can add that at any time.
Okay.
And just make it easier to have the other one.
So we have, this does not have consensus. That's, seriously? Okay, it's just delayed. So,
I just have a comment.
Yes.
Remember, again, this is council's rules and procedures. The
I
mayor
agree,
just, the mayor just has, to chime in with her opinions, but this is our decisions.
Go.
I agree with you, but if that isn't even ready yet, I don't see any reason to put it in till it is.
Because it's done by staff, so it's not ready. Yes.
Can't tell
So
staff to hurry and
there
do
are
it.
different things that represent equity lens frameworks. And so what I had pulled together are sample questions that at some point there will be more trainings for people to learn how to ask these questions of themselves. But even as someone who's untrained, there's not harm in saying, have we allowed enough time for community input? There's not harm in saying, are all groups affected by this decision in the same way? The questions themselves are simply a sample set of questions. The framework, there's much more robust framework that for directors and staff, when they're doing project planning and estimating and their daily operational work, will have more things going into their use of a framework. For ours, as decision makers, the best thing we can do is incorporate these types of questions into how we ask if what we're producing from a budget standpoint or a comp plan standpoint or ordinance, are we considering people? So it's not a matter of waiting for a perfect framework. It's a matter of saying, are we taking the time to think about how people are affected by our decisions? And that's all that this section is it's very much just a starting point. It even says it within the section. This is a sample set of questions that we may choose to ask.
Thank you,
So-
Kate. By Robert rules, we vote no. Let's move to the next one, please.
so we did not have consensus at some point.
Yeah, thank
It
you.
can be brought back before the full board, for body, sorry. So the last piece that we have before this document is completed is suggested additions to the appendix. So I do have a question regarding this. Your guys' rules already state who manages which meetings and how those are done.
And so in this section, the concept of an appendix is really just to get more basic how-to information to new council members when they come in so that they understand how to go and engage in the things that they may want to do. So within the appendix, having a how-to, it really would start at bullet C, I, 2, 3, and so forth. And so how to request a proclamation. Some people may know that you can go to the city website and do that. Some people may not know that, right? But if you're a council member, you should have that information available to you. We have information on what the agenda of a study session is, but we're not exactly clear on if you're a special focus chair or if you're a sole council member that would like to get something added. We don't necessarily have clear instructions for what are the mechanics to go get that agenda item added. Is it go talk to the mayor? Is it go work with the deputy mayor? Is it go work with your directors in your special focus area? It could be any number of things. And so this section is about saying, for these functional activities, what's the best way to go do these things, right? Because we do all of them today, and if you know how to do it, more power to you. But if you come in and you don't know how to do it, it'd be really handy to have it laid out for you. And so the only difference in this section versus the other ones that I had put together is that I didn't, personally go write each how-to on this. I would really look for probably the clerk and legal to outline it.
Yes.
Kate, during our new council onboarding, Sean did go over quite a few of these items. As a matter of fact, I think the only one that I don't remember specifically was the retiring and ad hoc committee, but she did go over how to request a proclamation. Sean had really comprehensive, complete training for us new council members when we started.
Mhm.
So I am comfortable saying that if she's doing the onboarding for new council members, that's covered.
And I think I'm start getting tired late. And these, some of them, deputy mayor can answer question. And even like I'm looking for, sorry, I need to wear request resolution or template or something. These stuff you can ask staff to give it to you. I don't know, like I start feeling we start moving to be more like kids, and we need to have a book manual to show us stuff. It's more like this is we're elected body, this is our policy, that's what we work on it. I love the idea. I feel maybe being done to be as a tip sheet.
That's why it's an appendix. Sorry.
No, it became, the rules and procedure became pain more than it need to be. Go ahead, Clinton.
I think when you say procedures, though, that in certain sections, not throughout the entire manual, but there are certain sections that need to be really clearly defined a little bit more than other sections. I'm okay with this staying here. I don't have a problem with it one way or the other. I don't see it being something that would be disruptive to the flow of the council. And, I don't know how to disband or retire an ad hoc committee. And if I was new to the council, I wouldn't even know to ask that question. So I think that there's some places in here where there's a little bit more clarity that could be defined. And so I'm okay with it either way. It can stay or go. I'm okay with it either way, honestly.
Okay.
Yes, Cheryl.
I'm sorry. I just have a question, Sean. Is this something that can go on the city webpage under council where we get those report things?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You know, where we get the reports to fill out for our committees and stuff? You know, you click on council and then.
So create it, not have it be a part of your rules of procedure, but have it
create
a
it
how-to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will be, yeah.
That would be at the staff.
I just kind of like that
Mayor.
idea because it's kind of a thing that you might forget something or it would be nice to just have it on the computer.
Yeah, and you have it online, and it changed over time, like how to develop, like template, they change, yeah. Go ahead, Clinton.
I was gonna not, but to the mayor's point, again, just keeping in mind, in a perfect world, a lot of this stuff sounds great to do and all that, but somebody got to do it. So in that instance, I would say no, because that's adding more work to them and adding more work for them to do. And if she doesn't approve that, which she's supposed, or the mayor, the person, the role, because
Oh, I know, we know, you're not pointing.
no, I'm just saying, like, I think we have to be careful about, like,
Staff
saying things like we should do this and put it on the website, all of that, because those are man hours that have to be approved. And so I think we're.
Yes, I don't see any reason why we can't just put that in there. It's there. If we choose not to look at it and use it, that's on us. But it's gonna be, it should be there for us new council members or council members to be
So
able.
can I make a comment? If this goes in there.
I know it needs to be created and they're working on it.
Yes, so, but if this goes in there, I will not have the appendix in any way, shape, or form ready for the next council meeting. This body of work in
More
front of me
statement, yeah.
is going to take me some significant time
Yeah.
to create.
Yeah.
And so if I get direction to create these and have them available for you the same as all the other things, I'm happy to do that if that is the direction I am given. But I will not, regardless of the choice here tonight, have this available to be an appendix in the council rules coming forward in a week. So.
Yes.
I just want to say, I think my goal for having it go to the clerk as the person to really drive putting it together is I think you know the answer for how to do all of these things already. And I will be frank, I was very hesitant to try and strike out and write those up myself because I figured I'm gonna get it wrong and then we're gonna spend even more time going through correcting how wrong I am on all of those things. And so if they can be created and produced as a how-to, perhaps with a different timeline, I think that would be fantastic, and then we could still move forward with rules and procedures. But I don't know what that time frame would be needed to develop those and make them available for council.
We'd have to discuss that later.
We would have to discuss it with,
Mhm.
because at this time, it's obviously not my only role, but.
Is that-
So do I have consensus to not add this piece to the upcoming rules of procedure? To be honest, all of this has the same, the same requirements.
Yeah.
I won't have. Why, let me delete the other ones? I don't know, but. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it.
That's it. That's why I was. Well,
No,
okay.
I didn't know she was kept scrolling. I was.
Yes, council member.
Well, I just want to tell everybody, thank you for working together. I know that not everybody got what they wanted, and I feel like all of us worked together to accomplish what we accomplished.
We say it in the meeting.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, while we're wrapped up with rules and procedures, I do still think the items in the appendix would be useful tools for council that I would like to see produced in the future.
I'll turn it to the, chair will be ready to
Thank you.
I'll turn it to the
Thank you.
chair.
And I have to agree with Cheryl. It was nice to be able to agree to disagree nicely and move this forward. And with that, if there's no other questions or anything, we're adjourned.